Chapter 22:12. He landed on the ground. Chunzong felt his body sink, as if he was carrying a heavy weight. His feet left two footprints on the dark red ground that looked like it was made of countless rocks. It was very heavy, and Chunzong felt that it would be quite difficult to fly. Chunzong gave it a try and found that it was possible to fly. However, because of the unique laws here, flying consumed 10 times more energy than usual. This was because he had to expend even more energy to resist the suppression of this place. In a few breaths, Chunzong got used to the unique environment and pressure of the 10,000 Flames secret realm. When Chunzong looked around, he immediately saw a red flame burning on a fiery red rock. The flame was about the size of a palm. Waves of fiery aura spread out from the crimson flames. Chunzong knew that the flame was the 10,000 Flames essence of the 10,000 Flames secret realm. However, he didn't know what grade it was. The 10,000 Flames essence existed in the form of flames and was divided into 5 grades. There were different grades and points for each grade. The people of the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain should know how to differentiate the grades. However, Chunzong wasn't a disciple of the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Regardless, as long as it was the 10,000 Flames essence, Chunzong would take it. When he left the 10,000 Flames secret realm, he would count it. In order to obtain the 10,000 Flames essence, he had to get close to it and touch it. The fire protection token wasn't just a token to pass through. It was also a token to leave the 10,000 Flames secret realm. It was also a treasure to store the 10,000 Flames essence. When Chunzong touched the 10,000 Flames essence with his palm, he immediately felt a scorching heat. It was as if his palm was going to be burned. If Chunzong didn't have a strong world deity body and a strong cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to withstand it. With a thought, the 10,000 Flames essence disappeared and another flame appeared in the fire protection token. Third Senior Brother has made it clear. This time, we have to make sure that the true disciple of the Will Heavenly Palace doesn't get anything. Remember, spread the news. Let every true disciple of the Divine Flame Mountain know about it. Let's work together. Humph! A mere outsider dares to covet our myriad tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. Don't worry, this person isn't a disciple of our Divine Flame Mountain. Without our Divine Flame Mountain's cultivation technique and secret technique, it won't be easy for him to collect the myriad flame essence. At most, he can only collect some low-level and mid-level myriad flame essence. Once he encounters high-level myriad flame essence, he won't be able to withstand it. Someone sneered. The essence of 10,000 flames was said to be the amalgamation of the essence of 10,000 types of flames. It possessed a shockingly high temperature. One might be able to resist the low-level and mid-level 10,000 flames essence with one's cultivation. However, the high-level 10,000 flames essence was extremely hot. If one didn't have the corresponding means, such as the cultivation methods and secret skills of the Divine Flame Mountain, it would be difficult to resist it with one's cultivation alone. Even if one's cultivation was high enough to withstand the effects of the myriad flames essence, it would only be temporary. The higher the grade of the myriad flames essence, the harder it would be to harvest it. That may be the case, but the myriad flame essence is the essence of countless flames. Not only can it be counted as points, it is also greatly beneficial to our cultivation. How can we let an outsider take it away? That's right. The myriad flame essence belongs to our Divine Flame Mountain. Let him gain nothing. Gain nothing. Chunzong didn't know that thousands of Divine Flame Mountain's pro-disciples had teamed up to target him. Of course, even if he knew, Chunzong wouldn't be nervous at all. That was the confidence that came from a strong will and powerful combat strength. The Myriad Flames secret realm opened only once every few years. It would automatically produce the Myriad Flame essence and turn it into flames that would spread throughout the secret realm. The secret realm wasn't small. It was extremely vast. Every time it opened, it would produce a large amount of myriad flame essence. Soon, Chunzong collected more than a dozen scarlet flames the size of a palm and put them all into the fire protection token. Every time Chunzong collected the myriad flame essence, he could feel a desire from the purple domain star dragon flame in his body, as if it wanted to devour it. Now, Chunzong took out a myriad flame essence from the fire protection token and put it into his body. He felt a shocking heat spread throughout his body as the myriad flame essence wantonly spread throughout his body. It felt as if his body was going to be burned to ashes. The condensation of many types of flame essence was extraordinary. In the blink of an eye, Chunzong used the flame dragon breath refining magic, causing the violet domain star dragon flame to swirl out. In the blink of an eye, the quintessence of all flames was consumed and refined. The myriad flame essence was the condensation of the essence of flames. It didn't contain any impurities, so it was very easy to absorb. Moreover, Chunzong had the flaming dragon breath cultivation technique, which was a top-grade flame cultivation technique. After refining the scarlet myriad flame essence, Chunzong felt that the purple domain star dragon flame had improved. However, it was still some distance away from the fifth revolution Dao manipulation realm. Although there was still the myriad flame essence, Chunzong didn't intend to absorb it. This was because he wanted to use it as points to fight for the top 3 spots in the Myriad Flame Conference and obtain the right to enter the Myriad Flame Furnace. The Myriad Flame essence, the more the better. Chunzong collected all the flames he saw along the way as he headed towards the few powerful essence of myriad flames that he had seen when he was looking down from the sky. Not long after, Chunzong saw an orange flame. The flame was also the size of a palm, but the power it contained was much stronger than the scarlet flame. There was no doubt that the orange flame was of a higher level than the scarlet flame. Chunzong even guessed that the level of the scarlet flame couldn't be the lowest level of myriad flame essence, right? At the moment of contact, Chunzong could feel that the orange myriad flame essence emitted a high temperature that was much higher than the scarlet flame. It burned incessantly, as if it wanted to burn his palm. However, Chunzong's cultivation level was very high, and his world divine body was very strong. Even such a high temperature couldn't do anything to Chunzong. As his mind moved, the orange flame was sucked into the fire protection token, separating it from the scarlet flames. Chunzong could feel that the scarlet flames seemed to be afraid of the orange flame. It was as if they were in awe of the orange flame. Of course, the myriad flame essence didn't have any intelligence. It only had a unique instinct. Chunzong remembered that the flames he saw when he fell from the sky were all purple. He could feel that their power was much stronger than the orange myriad flame essence. If the scarlet myriad flame essence was of a lower level, then the orange myriad flame essence should be of a middle level, and the purple myriad flame essence could be of a higher level. A higher level myriad flame essence was equivalent to 100 points. It was the sum of 100 lower level myriad flame essences. Moreover, according to the rules of the Myriad Flame Mountain, half of the Myriad Flame essence obtained in the Myriad Flame Secret Realm would be given to the Myriad Flame Mountain to enrich the resources, and the other half would belong to the cultivator. The higher the level of the Myriad Flame essence, the more valuable and rare it was. Any knowledgeable cultivator would know this. Although it was said that the points of a high-grade 10,000 flames essence were equivalent to the points of 100 low-grade 10,000 flames essences, the value of a high-grade cultivator was not measured in this way. 1,000 or even 10,000 low-grade 10,000 flames essences could not compare to it. When they fell from the sky, many people took the opportunity to scan their surroundings to see if there were any higher-level myriad flame essences. After memorizing the direction, they headed in that direction. Chunzong wasn't the only one who did this. It was inevitable that they would meet. A purple flame the size of a palm was burning on a huge rock that was dozens of meters tall. Traces of indescribable power were continuously spreading out from within the purple flames. Many people appeared in the distance from all directions. Purple, higher-level myriad flame essence. 1,000 points. In an instant, everyone's eyes widened and their breathing quickened. Higher-level myriad flame essence was extremely rare in the myriad flame secret realm. It was second only to the super-level myriad flame essence. To a certain extent, the super-level myriad flame essence was a legend. At the very least, the super-level myriad flame essence had rarely appeared in the myriad flame secret realm. Even if it was higher-level myriad flame essence, there wouldn't be many of them each time it opened, and it would always lead to an intense competition. This higher-level myriad flame essence is mine. That's mine. The true disciples of the myriad flame mountain were extremely excited. They were so excited that they rushed toward the purple flame at full speed. Among them, one of them was the fastest and was the first to arrive. With a leap, he landed on a boulder that was tens of meters high. His left hand suddenly ignited with a ball of bright red flames, covering his 5 fingers as he directly grabbed at the ball of purple flames. As if it had sensed danger approaching, the purple flame suddenly trembled, and a shocking roar seemed to faintly come from it. In the next breath, as the purple flame tumbled, it shook and turned into a fierce tiger. The flame that was originally the size of a palm turned into a purple tiger that was a few meters long. It was burning with blazing flames. After letting out a shocking roar, it suddenly grabbed the air with its claws. With a boom, the purple flame tiger's claw was extremely powerful. It was extremely shocking and powerful. The true disciple of the myriad flame mountain's expression immediately changed. He clenched his left hand into a fist that was burning with blazing flames. He suddenly threw a punch. Collision. The fist and the claw instantly collided, and an overwhelming power erupted. Shocking momentum surged out in all directions, causing ripples and sparks to fly. Higher-level myriad flame essence was different from lower-level, middle-level, and high-level myriad flame essence. It wasn't just power and high temperature. Instead, it could transform into other forms and possess powerful fighting strength. If one wanted to subdue it, they would have to defeat it first. Stop. This higher-level myriad flame essence is mine. In an instant, the other true disciples of the myriad flame mountain also arrived. They immediately attacked the purple flame tiger. If they wanted to subdue the higher-level myriad flame essence, they would first have to defeat it and return it to its original flame form. Only then would they be able to subdue it. Chapter 22:13. The tiger's roar shook the heavens and the earth. It was accompanied by waves of blazing heat that spread in all directions and surged with waves of hot wind. The 4 elite disciples of the divine flame mountain acted even more hastily. They knew very well that this tiger roar would definitely attract even more people over. When that happened, the competition would be even greater. Under the joint attack of the 4, the purple flame tiger continued to fight back, displaying amazing combat power. However, it gradually fell into a disadvantage. Purple flame tiger. Transform. It is indeed a top-grade myriad flame's essence. Cries of surprise rang out unceasingly. The divine flame mountain's true disciples who rushed over from afar immediately erupted with shocking auras. They turned into surging flames that burned in all directions. Attack! Attack first! In just a single moment, the tiger endured many attacks. Attacks shot towards it from all directions like flaming meteors. Even the 4 true disciples of the divine flames mountain who were fighting the tiger in close combat were caught in the attacks. In any case, no one would die. In the face of danger, if they could not withstand it, the power of the fire protection medallion would protect them and leave the 10,000 flames secret realm. The expressions of the 4 people changed greatly. They did not hesitate to use their full strength and rushed out in all directions to avoid being affected. Under such a powerful bombardment, the purple flame tiger still couldn't withstand it. It turned into a round ball, which was the purple flame from before, and swayed slightly. With a flash of sword radiance, Chunzong also saw the purple flame. He felt that the power contained in the purple flame was far stronger than the orange flame, and even stronger than the crimson flame. Without hesitation, Chunzong also made a move. Although he was slower than the others, Chunzong's speed was the fastest. The sword light flew close to the ground at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, it overtook the other fiery figures and appeared on a huge rock that was dozens of meters high, beside the purple flame. Who? It's him, the legacy of a heavenly palace. All the Divine Flame Mountain's elite disciples were shocked, and then they were extremely furious. Attack! Without any hesitation, the 10-odd Divine Flame Mountain true inheritors all attacked. They sent out waves of fiery light or huge, flaming fists ferociously. Earlier, they had already received a message from third senior brother Chi Mei, telling them to work together against the true disciples of a heavenly palace. Who would have thought that Chi Mei would take the initiative to come to them and compete with them for the top-grade Myriad Flames essence? Xiao Chun directly smashed out of the 10,000 flame secret realm to show Xiao Chun the might of a divine flame mountain true inheritor. More than a dozen attacks, each of which was extremely violent and filled with extremely high temperature, seemed to want to burn Chunzong to a crisp. When Chunzong's left hand landed on the purple essence of 10,000 flames, he immediately felt an extremely terrifying heat, as if his hand was about to be incinerated. Even though Chunzong had a tyrannical world, godly body, and great power, he could still feel the high temperature of the purple flame. It was as if he could not resist it and directly penetrated it. Flaming dragon breathing technique. Without the slightest hesitation, Chunzong began to circulate this top-grade flame cultivation method. In just an instant, Chunzong felt that the terrifying heat of the purple flame had become much gentler, and the burning sensation on his palm had lessened by a great deal. Immediately, Chunzong's mind moved, and the purple flame immediately disappeared and reappeared in the fire protection token. Hand over the top-grade Myriad Flames essence at once. Following a series of furious roars that were filled with bewilderment, a series of terrifying attacks came crashing down. In the face of these extremely terrifying flame attacks, Chunzong's expression did not change. He put his right index and middle fingers together and turned them into sword fingers. He drew a line in the void. In an instant, sword chi and sword light surged. With just one blow, all the flames were directly split and scattered. These divine flame mountain true inheritors' battle strength might be good, but compared to Chunzong, the gap was too big. Chunzong did not even draw his sword. He only used his fingers as a sword, and with one blow, all the attacks were scattered. Chunzong's gaze swept across them, and as a bright light flashed, the expressions of the divine flame mountain true inheritors changed drastically. Chunzong's gaze was so sharp that it seemed like it could pierce through them and tear them apart. The situation was somewhat unexpected. One of them immediately sent out a message, but a sword light flashed in front of him. He could not block it. The fire protection token trembled, and light spread out and enveloped him. In the next instant, he felt the world spinning, and he was directly thrown into the flame vortex and disappeared. The divine flame mountain true inheritors were all sent out of the Myriad Flames secret realm by the fire protection token and appeared in the outside world. Why did you all come out so quickly? An elder looked at the dozen or so true disciples who came out of the 10,000 flame secret realm in astonishment. He could not help feeling astonished. Although the competition in the Myriad Flames secret realm was very intense every time, and many people would be sent out, this was too fast. Moreover, there were more than a dozen of them, as if they had made an appointment beforehand. It's him. One of the true inheritors was furious. Who is it? The elder found this strange. The Will Heavenly Palace's true inheritor. One of the true inheritors felt like killing someone. The Myriad Flames secret realm had opened for less than a day, and the true inheritors had already left, missing out on an opportunity. Even if they could not get into the top 3 in the end, as long as they could obtain Myriad Flames essence in the Myriad Flames secret realm, half of it would go to the Divine Flame Mountain, and the other half would go to them. They could use it to aid their cultivation, which was very effective. Now this opportunity was gone. How much Myriad Flames essence could they obtain in one day? Furthermore, they were all low-ranked Myriad Flames essence. It was all that Will Heavenly Palace's true inheritor's fault. I already spread the news that he obtained peak Myriad Flames essence. I believe he will be sent out soon. One of the true inheritors growled through gritted teeth. Chunzong did not know about this, nor did he care. Peak myriad flames essence. Chunzong muttered to himself. Then he checked the purple flame in the fire protection token, and a bright light flickered in his eyes. It could be seen that the scarlet flames, the orange flames, and the purple flames were distinctly separated. Chunzong could feel the aura coming from it. If the purple flame is a peak myriad flames essence, then the orange flame should be a mid-ranked one, and the scarlet flame should be a low-ranked one. Chunzong thought to himself. This was a judgment based on the strength of the aura. Chunzong's judgment was correct. Even though he did not have the knowledge of the divine flame mountain, it was not difficult, especially since Chunzong was very sensitive to aura. A peak grade 10,000 flames essence was worth 1,000 points. Moreover, Chunzong could feel that this peak grade 10,000 flames essence was greatly beneficial to his flame dragon breath refining technique and the purple world star dragon flame. As long as he could refine and absorb this peak grade 10,000 flames essence, his purple world star dragon flame would definitely grow stronger. However, now is not the time to refine and absorb it. After all, his goal was to enter the myriad tribulation divine flame furnace and break through. That was the most important thing. Everything else was secondary. Peak myriad flames essence. Damn it. The true disciple of the heavenly palace actually obtained a peak myriad flames essence. Before the true disciple of the divine flame mountain was thrown out, he had already sent the news to the other true disciples. As true disciples of the divine flame mountain, they could naturally communicate with each other. However, after entering the myriad flames secret realm, they would be enemies and would not casually communicate with each other. However, because of Chunzong, they were able to communicate with each other. A peak myriad flames essence. Scarlet eyebrows raised slightly, and a trace of astonishment flashed across his eyes. He then sneered. No matter how much he obtains, he will only benefit Brother Scarlet Eyebrows in the end, Di Lu Jiang said with a smile. After entering the myriad flames secret realm, Di Lu Jiang had acted together with Scarlet Eyebrows. Brother Di Lu Jiang is right. The more he obtains, the more he will jump, and the worse he will fall. Scarlet Eyebrows sneered, and a powerful aura spread out from his body. One of the spots for the myriad tribulation divine flame furnace belonged to him. The other two spots naturally belonged to second senior brother Yu Shulong and first senior sister Yu Tianfeng. After all, the three of them were the strongest in the myriad flames secret realm. Strong fighting strength gave them an advantage in the myriad flames secret realm. Even if they could not obtain much of the myriad flames essence, they could steal others' myriad flames essence. Moreover, in terms of prestige, the three of them were second to none in the Tao controlling realm in the divine flame mountain. Many true disciples were willing to curry favor with them. Even if an outsider was an elite true disciple of the heavenly palace, so what? It should be known that the power of the fire protection badge was not activated automatically. It would only be activated when one was faced with an irresistible attack or danger and sent out of the myriad flame secret realm. Many true disciples of the divine flame mountain had already figured out the power of the fire protection badge. After all, they had experience. As long as the attack was controlled to a certain extent and was not fatal, the power of the fire protection badge would not be activated. At that time, they could forcefully steal the myriad flames essence from the other party's fire protection badge. This was also a competition mechanism in the divine flame mountain. As long as it was not fatal, as long as there were no injuries that could not be healed, all methods could be used. However, this was not the case after leaving the myriad flames secret realm. The competition mechanism of the myriad flames divine flame mountain had always been like this. At that time, they would defeat the outsider and ruthlessly humiliate him. They would then steal all the myriad flames essence from the fire protection badge. One had to admit that Chimei's idea was very good. Since Chimei knew that Chunzong had obtained a top-grade myriad flames essence, second senior brother Yu Su Long naturally knew as well. My luck is not bad. I obtained a top-grade myriad flames essence on the first day. Yu Su Long waved his folding fan and muttered to himself, "It seems like I have to speed up. Otherwise, I might not be able to secure a spot." In theory, the top 3 spots should be reserved for Yu Tianfeng, Yu Su Long, and Qi Mei. The other true disciples were just going through the motions. Of course, they could also obtain other rewards. Yu Tianfeng also heard the news, but her expression was indifferent, as if she was high and mighty, without the slightest fluctuation. This was because, in her opinion, this news had nothing to do with her. The first place of the Myriad Flames Grand Meet was hers. No one could take it away from her. Chapter 22:14. The 10,000 Flames secret domain was vast. Thousands of divine flame mountains true disciples had entered and scattered. However, no matter how big the 10,000 Flames secret domain was, it was still limited. The speed of the true disciples was very fast. Even if the 10,000 Flames secret domain was like a small world, it could not withstand 3 months of searching. As time passed, Chunzong collected even more 10,000 Flames essence. The crimson 10,000 Flames essence was indeed low grade. The orange 10,000 Flames essence was middle grade. The blue 10,000 Flames essence was high grade. The top grade 10,000 Flames essence was purple. As for the super grade, Chunzong did not know. He had never seen it before. After a month, Chunzong collected thousands of low-grade crimson 10,000 Flames essence, hundreds of middle-grade orange 10,000 Flames essence, and dozens of high-grade blue 10,000 Flames essence. As for the top-grade 10,000 Flames essence, there was only one, which he had collected on the first day. The top-grade 10,000 Flames essence was indeed hard to come by. However, Chunzong now saw the second top-grade 10,000 Flames essence. It was burning on a flaming lake, as if it contained all the essence of the flaming lake. Chunzong's figure flashed, and he stepped into the flaming lake. He turned into a ray of sword light and rapidly approached the purple flame. As if it had sensed danger, the purple flame suddenly trembled. It was originally only the size of a palm, but it suddenly became extremely hot, as if oil had been poured on it. It was as if it was going to soar into the sky. In the next moment, the flames in the flaming lake also erupted like water. It soared into the sky, and a dragon's roar resounded in all directions. In an instant, a 10-meter-long purple dragon soared into the sky. It waved its claws and fangs, and the dragon's tail was burning with shocking flames. It caused the flaming lake to explode. With a roar, the purple dragon immediately charged at Chunzong. It opened its mouth and spat out a torrent of purple flames. Its power was shocking. With a roar, the terrifying purple flames rushed over. Chunzong's expression changed slightly. The power was indeed very strong. It had reached the level of a 10-star battle power. Moreover, it was the kind of peak 10-star battle power that was close to 11-star. Most of the true disciples of the Divine Flame Mountain would not be able to resist such battle power. It was even stronger than the purple flame tiger. But it was nothing to Chunzong. The sword light suddenly flashed and slashed out against the sky, directly cutting the purple flame dragon's breath. One sword, only one sword, and the amazing fighting power of the purple flame dragon was immediately cut in half and turned back into a purple flame. Chunzong's figure flashed. His left hand grabbed the purple flame, and the flame dragon breathing technique was activated. Collect. In the blink of an eye, the 10,000 Flames essence entered the fire protection token, turning from 1 flower into 2. Stop! Hand over that purple flame. A loud shout suddenly came from a distance, and Xiao Gusai saw a purple flame in the distance. It was the top-grade Myriad Flame essence, and, just as he was about to rejoice, he discovered that someone else had taken it first. Moreover, he wasn't a true disciple of Divine Flame Mountain, but an outsider. He was the person that third senior brother Qi mate told them to target, and they just happened to run into him. Then, before he blasted him out of the 10,000 Flames secret realm, he would first take all of his 10,000 Flames essence. He would more or less gain something in a month's time. With this thought, Xiao Gusai burst out at full speed, turning into a blazing flame. Strands of purple lightning flickered, making his power even more terrifying. Xiao Gusai was ranked 78th on the True Flame ranking. His fighting power was at the 10-star level, and he was not weak. He used all of his fighting power in this attack without holding back. Chunzong's figure didn't move as he stared at the blazing flame that was suffused with violet lightning that approached swiftly. His sword hadn't left its sheath, and he only used his finger as a sword to emit a dazzling and resplendent sword light. In the blink of an eye, under the sword light, the lightning dissipated and the flame shattered, revealing Xiao Gusai's figure. His face was full of shock and horror. How could his opponent's fighting power be so strong? It was unexpected. Burst! In an instant, Xiao Gusai directly used a secret technique. The flame burned and soared into the sky, and his fighting power soared. The shocking flame wrapped in terrifying lightning and thunder, as if it was going to destroy everything. His fighting power soared, approaching the 11-star level, but still not reaching that level. When it came to secret techniques and divine powers, no force in the entire void could compare with Will Heavenly Palace. The Heart Flame divine power could be stacked up to 33 times. Another sword light. Chunzong did not even need to unsheath his sword. The burning flame on Xiao Gusai's body was extinguished in an instant. He was directly defeated by Chunzong's sword and could not resist at all. The sword light flashed and turned into strands of sword chi. Like silk, they immediately bound Xiao Gusai, and he could not move at all. The shocking sharpness and chilliness made Xiao Gusai's expression change drastically. He was extremely frightened, as if he would be torn apart by the sword chi if he moved a little. "Your 1,000 flame essence belongs to me," Chunzong said with a smile. He approached Xiao Gusai and put the fire protection token close to his opponent's. Then, he activated his power and forcibly took the 1,000 flame essence from his opponent's fire protection token. This was also a mechanism set up by the 1,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Xiao Gusai's face was ashen. He was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only let his 1,000 flame essence be taken away by his opponent. In the end, only half of the 1,000 flame essence was left. This was also the restriction of the rules. He could only take half of it, not all of it. "Thank you." After taking it away, Chunzong said to Xiao Gusai with a smile. Xiao Gusai almost vomited blood. Half of the 1,000 flame essence was forcibly taken away. That was equivalent to half a month's effort. He originally wanted to take the 1,000 flame essence, but now it was the other way around. Damn it, but this person's battle strength is very strong. He is at least an 11-star battle strength. Xiao Gusai felt that it was necessary to tell this news to the others so that they would not follow in his footsteps. An 11-star battle strength was very strong. Only those with the same battle strength could resist it. Among the disciples who had entered the 1,000 Flames secret realm, there were less than 10 11-star battle strength. After all, some of them were not in the 1,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Soon, Chi Mei and the others received the news. Chi Mei muttered to himself, "He actually has an 11-star combat strength. This is really unexpected." It's not surprising that an elite disciple of the Will Heavenly Palace has 11-star battle strength, Di Lu Jiang said with a smile. Chi Mei nodded. Indeed, if one did not have 11-star battle strength, they would not dare to come to the 1,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. After all, a 10-star battle strength was nothing to a sacred ground. Only 11-star battle strength could be considered a true elite. An 11-star battle strength is good. If it's too weak, it will be boring. Chi Mei sneered. After knowing that Chunzong had 11-star battle strength, many of the true disciples of the Divine Flame Mountain saw Chunzong from afar and avoided him directly. Although they wanted to target Chunzong, the difference in battle strength was too obvious. If they went up, not only would they not be able to kill him, but they would also be giving him the 1,000 Flame Essence. Since the true disciples of the 1,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain did not take the initiative to attack him, Chunzong would not deliberately cause trouble for them. After the second month, the amount of 1,000 flame essence in Chunzong's fire protection badge increased. Furthermore, the number of top-tier 1,000 flame essence increased from 2 to 4. There was a huge lake at the center of the 10,000 flames secret realm. The water of the lake was blue. If one were to take a closer look, one would discover that it wasn't water at all. Instead, it was fire. Countless blue flames settled down and formed a lake. It looked like water at first glance. Although it was difficult to feel high temperature, it was undeniable that the temperature was shocking and terrifying. This lake was called the 1,000 Flame Lake. It was the center of the 1,000 Flames secret realm and the place where all the fire energy in the 1,000 Flames secret realm gathered. Above the blue 10,000 Flames lake, flames condensed from the essence of the 10,000 flames floated and drifted slowly. Crimson red, orange, and blue. Low, middle, and high 10,000 flame essence permeated the air. Not long after, layers of ripples appeared on the surface of the blue lake. Soon after, a scarlet 10,000 flame essence floated on the surface of the lake. Not long after, the crimson myriad flame essence slowly changed its color to orange, from low-grade to mid-grade. This blue 10,000 flames lake was the core of the 10,000 flames secret realm, and it contained shocking power. All of a sudden, a gust of wind blew past, and countless ripples appeared on the surface of the blue lake. In the next instant, all of the myriad flame essence flowers floating on the surface of the lake shuddered before plummeting into the blue lake and disappearing into the bottom of the lake. Splash, splash, splash. The sound of waves also rang out. The vast myriad flames lake, which was several tens of thousands of kilometers wide, became increasingly intense. As they collided with each other, they gradually merged together. In the end, they turned into an incomparably huge ripple that covered the entire surface of the lake. It grew from all directions and quickly gathered at the center. A strange scene appeared. Layers of waves converged from all directions, surging and crashing at the center, bursting forth with countless waves. Upon closer inspection, it was not water, but sparks, faint blue and incomparably blazing sparks. Gradually, a speck of purple began to brew within it. The color continued to deepen and spread until it finally turned into a deep purple color. The surroundings were blue, and only the center where the blue converged was a deep purple. The color was as deep as a gemstone, so magnificent and enchanting. The ripples were endless, turning into waves that swept across. At the very center of the deep purple, a wisp of white seemed to quietly spread out. Immediately after, a palm-sized white flame quietly emerged from the center of the deep purple lake, which was also the center of the 10,000 flames lake. It was like a mischievous flame spirit. It was white, pure white without any blemishes. Burn! The white flames continued to burn. The moment the white flames appeared, the deep purple ripples slowly faded away. Bit by bit, they turned back to blue. The surrounding ripples also slowly calmed down, returning to its original calm state. The blue lake was like a huge sapphire. The only difference was that the 1,000 flame essence could no longer be seen. Instead, it was replaced by a single white flame. Chapter 22:15. The white flame did not seem to have any temperature at all, as if it was just an illusion. Soon after, as if a gust of wind had blown past, the white flame swayed along with it. It was as light as a feather as it floated along with the wind and fluttered on the surface of the 10,000 flames lake. The white flame seemed to be full of spirituality, like a white fairy. It was very cheerful as it soared on the surface of the lake. From time to time, the white flames would soar into the sky, and from time to time, they would plunge into the bottom of the lake and wander about in the depths of the myriad flames lake. White, 10,000 flames essence. One of the direct disciples of the divine flames mountain got close to the 10,000 flames lake and saw the white flame shooting out of the lake. He was stunned and lost in thought. The 10,000 flames essence in the 10,000 flames secret realm was crimson, which was low tier. Some were orange, which was middle tier. Some were blue, which was high tier. As for the top tier, it was purple. White. In his memory, there was only one type of 10,000 flames essence that was white, and that was the transcendent flame essence. The transcendent 10,000 flames essence was the top tier 10,000 flames essence. The 10,000 flames secret realm had opened a few times, but had never appeared before. He did not expect to see the transcendent 10,000 flames essence this time. One transcendent 10,000 flames essence was worth 10,000 points, which was equivalent to 10 transcendent 10,000 flames essences. However, he did not even get a single transcendent 10,000 flames essence in the past 2 months. That's mine. The direct disciple's eyes shone brightly, and flames surged out of his body. The flames burned fiercely, and he unleashed a powerful force. 10-star battle power. He unleashed his full battle power. With a boom, the true disciple of Divine Flames Mountain turned into a blazing fireball. He instantly burst out with shocking speed and charged toward the white flame at Myriad Flames Lake. Before anyone else arrived, he had to quickly collect the transcendent flame to prevent any accidents from happening. If someone else arrived, there would be an intense fight. The white flame seemed to have sensed danger, and it suddenly stopped. In the next second, it burned fiercely. It was originally the size of a palm, but it suddenly grew to the size of a person, as if it was going to burn everything. Rumble. In an instant, the blue and serene surface of the lake suddenly became violent. Flames surged and surged in all directions, directly shooting up into the sky. A dragon's roar resounded abruptly, and then a huge blue flaming dragon head charged out from within the surging blue wave. It charged directly toward the legacy of Divine Flames Mountain and swallowed it in one gulp. In just one gulp, it devoured the legacy of Divine Flames Mountain. Of course, he did not actually devour the disciple. Once the disciple was devoured, the power of the Fire Protection Medallion was immediately activated and sent him out of the 10,000 Flames Secret Realm. Outside the 10,000 Flames Secret Realm, there were already several hundred true inheritors who had been blasted out. The blue flame dragon head dispersed, and the blue flame waves fell back down, returning to calmness. The white flame also returned to the size of a palm, and seemed to be very happy as it jumped a few times. The 10,000 flame essence itself had a certain amount of power. The low, middle, and high-level 10,000 flame essence only had high temperature. However, when it reached the top level, it could transform and explode with shocking battle strength. It was at least at the level of 10 stars, and could even reach the level of 11 stars. As for the surpassing white essence of 10,000 flames, its might was even more tyrannical. Its battle prowess was monstrous, surpassing the 11-star level. White flame, that's the transcendent 10,000 flame essence. As time passed, more and more true inheritors of Divine Flames Mountain arrived at the 10,000 Flame Lake. Since this was the center of the 10,000 Flame Secret Realm, according to past experience and records, the 10,000 Flame Lake at the center of the 10,000 Flame Secret Realm had a higher chance of producing 10,000 Flame Essence. However, they did not expect to see a lake full of 10,000 flame essence. Instead, they saw a white flame. That was the legendary transcendent 10,000 flame essence. They were really lucky. In an instant, regardless of their battle strength, all of them unleashed their full power and turned into streaks of fiery light that charged toward the white flame. The Myriad Flame Lake was a few tens of thousands of kilometers wide. It was completely blue, calm, and deep, and it was suffused with an aura fluctuation that caused one's heart to palpitate. It was as if some sort of extremely terrifying, enormous beast was hiding at the bottom of the blue lake, and once it appeared, it would annihilate everything. Normally, the crowd would be afraid and think twice. However, when they were attracted by the transcendent 10,000 flame essence, they did not hesitate at all. The transcendent 10,000 flame essence not only meant 10,000 points, but it also meant that as long as they could refine it, it would greatly benefit their cultivation. Even if the divine flame mountain took it away, they would still receive a great reward. No matter what, they had to obtain the transcendent 10,000 flame essence. Erupt, erupt, erupt with full power. Several dozen divine flame mountain true disciples charged toward the white flame from the surroundings of the 10,000 flame lake. Sensing danger again, the white flame suddenly trembled. In an instant, it burned fiercely. The blue color in the surroundings erupted again, surging up to 100 meters into the air. In the next moment, numerous blue flame dragon heads condensed and charged towards the divine flame mountain's true disciples. One bite, just one bite. All of them were swallowed and sent out of the 10,000 flames secret realm. Let me deal with you. Yi Tianhua's body shook, and the black flame burned fiercely. He unleashed a shocking 11-star battle strength. A terrifying aura surged and spread out in all directions. It was as if the world was about to explode. Boom! Yi Tianhua unsheathed his saber. He suddenly slashed with his saber covered in black flames. A saber aura erupted for several dozen meters. The saber aura seemed to tear the world apart as it tried to split the lake in half. Slash! Instantly, one of the blue flame dragon heads was shattered. The saber aura continued forward like a hot knife through butter, charging toward the white flame that was as tall as a person. However, the white flame suddenly condensed and turned into a burning white flame figure. It reached out and grabbed the black saber aura. With a boom, the black saber aura was shattered. The white flame pierced through the sky, piercing through the countless blue flames and heading toward Yi Tianhua. Yi Tianhua's ranking on the True Flame ranking was not low. He was ranked 7th. However, he could not dodge the white flame's attack. He could only unleash his power and attack again. This time, he gathered the endless power of the black flame. However, in the next instant, the black flame was shattered by the white flame. Yi Tianhua's entire body flew backward. He felt as if all his bones and tendons had been broken. He could not hold the saber in his hand, and it flew out. Powerful. The power of that blow was too strong. Even senior brother Red Eyebrows was not as strong as it. Retreat. Without hesitation, Yi Tianhua immediately retreated. As Yi Tianhua retreated, the white flame did not chase after him. After retreating to the shore, Yi Tianhua stared at the white flame and pondered. In the end, he decided to inform the others. Of course, not all of them. Only some of them would work together to destroy the white flame. As for the rest, they would discuss it later. When Yi Tianhua sent out the message, there was an unforeseen event. A few figures were approaching from different directions. The aura that had just exploded here had alarmed them. Yi Tianhua took a closer look, and his expression changed drastically. He then smiled bitterly. It seemed that he had no chance of getting the super 10,000 flames essence. This was because the newcomers were Red Eyebrows, who was ranked 3rd on the True Flame ranking, and his friend Di Lu Jiang, who was ranked 2nd, Yusu Long. In addition, there was another person in a white robe. It was the true disciple of the Heavenly Palace. According to the information, he had an 11-star battle strength. At most, he was about the same level as Yi Tianhua. Foil. After all, his 3rd senior brother and 2nd senior brother were stronger than him in terms of combat prowess. White Flame, super 10,000 flames essence. I did not expect our luck to be so good. Red Eyebrows smiled at Di Lu Jiang. Brother Red Eyebrows, go ahead. I will assist you. Di Lu Jiang smiled. 3rd junior brother, don't speak too early. The illusory Jade Dragon opened his folding fan and chuckled. He was a little excited in his heart. He had never expected to find the 10,000 flames essence. 2nd senior brother, let's rely on our skills. Red Eyebrow smiled. Outside, they were fellow disciples who were united. But here, they were competitors. Let's rely on our skills. Yusu Long smiled and waved his folding fan. A firestorm was formed and rumbled. It immediately blasted towards the 1,000 Flames Lake and towards the white flame. Red Eyebrows twitched as if the flame was spreading. Red Eyebrows instantly took action. His hands grabbed at the void and grabbed two balls of scarlet flames. There were also strands of scarlet lightning that emitted a terrifying power. With two loud booms, two balls of flames that flickered with scarlet lightning instantly shot out. Like thousands of waves, they erupted with an extremely terrifying power and blasted towards the white flames. Yi Tianhua's expression was solemn. This power was indeed stronger than his own. Although the third senior brother and second senior brother were both at the 11-star level, they were at the peak of the 11-star level. They could be said to be invincible among the 11-star level. Only the first senior sister could suppress them. The white flame exploded and soared into the sky. It turned into a white, flaming man. As it waved its hand, the 1,000 Flames Lake immediately went berserk and turned into a 100-meter-long blue flame dragon. The dragon roared and raged in all directions. At the same time, the white flaming man also took action and blasted out white flames. The Jade Void Dragon's firestorm was destroyed, and so was Red Eyebrow's attack. Di Lu Jiang took advantage of this moment and condensed a blazing fire on his finger. He waved it like a long whip. It was as if it was going to tear the lake and break the sky. It was going to whip the white fireman. But this attack was also shattered by the white flaming man. Di Lu Jiang, Red Eyebrows, and Yu Sulong were all at the peak of the 11-star level. Even so, they could barely resist the white flaming man when they worked together. Yi Tianhua glanced at the Heavenly Palace's true disciple, who was standing by the lake and watching without making a move. He couldn't help but smile coldly. As expected, he couldn't interfere in a battle like this. Even if it was an 11-star battle strength, there were still differences in strength. Inexplicably, Yi Tianhua felt satisfied. So what if he was an elite true disciple of Heavenly Palace? Wanting to enter the 1,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was just an illusion. Chapter 22:16. The Fire Phoenix soared into the sky, covering a distance of over 10,000 meters. Countless flames rained down from the sky, as if it was raining fire. They fell onto the ground and into the 10,000 Flames Lake. When they collided, countless sparks filled the air. Chunzong's eyes narrowed as he was secretly shocked by the power. Originally, Chunzong was observing the white 10,000 Flames essence. Its combat strength was very strong, completely surpassing that of an 11-star. It could even suppress 3 top 11-star experts. However, Chunzong felt that it was not the full power of the 10,000 Flames essence. It was still holding back and had not fully unleashed. Chunzong was not in a hurry to make a move because he was confident in his own combat strength. He did not expect the situation to change. The Fire Phoenix spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its shocking aura spread out and covered the sky as if it had shrouded the surroundings, turning it into a cage of flames. Even Chunzong felt pressured. On the 1,000 Flames Lake, the blue flame dragons were suppressed, disintegrated, and shattered. Senior sister is here. The hollow jade dragon was shocked. Retreat. Chi Mei's expression changed drastically. He immediately said to Di Lu Jiang and quickly retreated. Yi Tianhua had already retreated tens of thousands of meters away, out of the range of the Fire Phoenix wings. Only Chunzong did not move. Scared out of your wits, huh? Yi Tianhua sneered when he saw this. Suddenly, in the sky, the Fire Phoenix's wings with a wingspan of tens of thousands of meters suddenly shook. The wings flapped forward in an instant and closed at the ends. Fierce flames also surged out from the wings, breaking through the cage like a huge wave. They condensed into one and blasted out. The purple-red flame was like a mountain that was rampaging, yet it was also like an endless torrential wave. It was filled with the heavy Maida Mountain, but it also had a shocking momentum that was like a tidal wave, and it burned with an extremely terrifying temperature. The purple-red flames contained many mysteries of the great path of fire. Violent, continuous, burning. Boom! The ball of purple-red flames, which was dozens of meters in size, shot forward. The closer it got to the white flame man, the smaller it became. A terrifying pressure spread out, causing the blue lake to sink down several meters. When the purple-red flame was compressed to a size of a few meters, its power became even more terrifying. It shattered all the remaining blue flame dragons and mercilessly shot towards the white flame man like a meteor. This pressure was astonishing, making it difficult for the white flame man to dodge. It was immediately struck. Rumble. The entire Myriad Blaze Lake was fluctuating and shaking without end, and it swept out layer upon layer of intense waves that charged in all directions as if it wanted to shatter and drown everything. The blue, purple, and red surged like the end of the world. Chi Mei and the others' eyelids twitched, and they were shocked. With such power, eldest senior sister's battle prowess seems to have increased. The Jade Void Dragon was secretly shocked. 12 stars. The first senior sister's combat strength was at the 12-star level. It was like that before, but now it seemed to be even stronger. It was really shocking. Soon, I will also have a 12-star battle prowess. The Jade Void Dragon clenched his fists. As long as he improved his cultivation technique and cultivated that superpower to the extreme, his battle prowess could also break through the shackles of the 11-star level and step into the 12-star level. Of course, there would be more than one 12-star battle prowess in a holy land. Even if there was one, it would only be temporary. After all, there were so many geniuses, and there would always be one or two who could grow to the extreme. Chi Mei and the Jade Void Dragon both had hopes of breaking through the shackles and increasing their battle prowess to the transcendent realm. Relatively speaking, the Jade Void Dragon already saw hope. This time, as long as he entered the Myriad Blaze Furnace, he had an 80% chance of breaking through the limit of his battle prowess to the transcendent realm. Chi Mei wanted to enter the Myriad Blaze Furnace for the same reason. He wanted to use the power of this secret place to break through the shackles of his battle prowess. However, relatively speaking, he only had a 50% chance of success. If he did not enter the Myriad Blaze Furnace, he would not even have a 10% chance of success. One could imagine how important this opportunity was. It was no wonder that Chi Mei would be so hostile towards Chun Zong's arrival. That was because he might lose a great opportunity for himself. No matter who it was, they would not be able to deal with this matter normally. However, the law of the jungle was the law of the void. If Chun Zong knew about this, he could only apologize to Chi Mei. After all, the Myriad Blaze Furnace was related to his breakthrough. If it were not for the inner demon, he would not have to do this. Under the impact of the force, which was like a natural disaster, it immediately blasted towards Chun Zong. At the moment when Chun Zong was about to be engulfed, the sword light suddenly flashed. It was incomparably sharp, like a ray of brilliance that could split heaven and earth, directly splitting the violent force that was bombarding towards him. The blazing three-colored flame suddenly slid past Chun Zong. However, no one saw this scene because everyone's attention was attracted by the white flame man. Would such a powerful attack be able to destroy the transcendent Myriad Flame's essence? Immediately, a terrifying power directly burst out. The white flame soared into the sky and spread to a radius of 10 meters. It burned fiercely and directly defeated all the purple-red flames, as if they were burned into nothingness. Unknowingly, the white flame man was not damaged at all. Instead, it became more and more solid. Vaguely, one could see its facial features. It looked a bit like the Flame Spirit Clan. Of course, the flame was white, pure white. Full battle prowess. Chun Zong's eyes narrowed. Yes, this was the full battle prowess of the Myriad Blaze essence. It had not been fully activated before. He waved his arm. With a boom, a white flame suddenly broke through the air and blasted toward the huge fire phoenix that was falling from the sky. The fire phoenix was huge and powerful. The white flame did not look big, but it was actually very powerful. It actually blasted the fire phoenix and directly penetrated it. Then it quickly spread out and burned incessantly. It was extremely hot and released a white sun-like light that shone in all directions. The fire phoenix was defeated. However, a figure charged out from it. The fiery red whip shook and instantly straightened. Like a long spear, it suddenly pierced through the white flame and rushed out. The figure seemed to have a pair of fire phoenix wings on its back. As it flapped, it turned into a stream of light and exploded with incredible speed. The surrounding flames also scattered in an instant. It was like the king of flames, commanding and commanding with great vigor. It was Yu Tianfeng, a true disciple of the Tao control realm of the innumerable divine Flames Mountain. The whip was like a spear, condensing the terrifying power of the flame. It seemed to have turned solid and directly exploded with terrifying power. The white flame man became more and more solid. Its facial features also became clearer. It reached out and clenched its fist. As the flame flowed, it spat out a white long sword. With a slash, the white flame condensed into a sword light, like a crescent moon breaking through the sky. It could be seen that the white flame man's attack was very crude. Its application of power was still at a superficial level. Fight! Yu Qianfeng's combat strength had reached the 12-star level. Her martial arts attainments were even more superb. A fiery red whip covered with feathery patterns was in her hand. Sometimes it was straightened like a long spear, displaying amazing spear techniques. Sometimes it was like a long sword, displaying unfathomable sword techniques. Sometimes it was like a long whip, and the whip was unpredictable like a ghost. However, no matter which technique she used, it had amazing power. She condensed many flames and controlled many flames like a fire queen. The power was very shocking. As such, the white flame man was suppressed. In short, the white flame man had great power, but its application of power was very crude. It was no match for Yu Tianfeng at all. Under the attack of Yu Qianfeng's long whip, the white flame man was directly shot down into the blue bottom of the lake. An extremely overbearing aura spread in all directions as if it was suppressing the world. Wisps of flame aura permeated the surroundings, suspended around Yu Tianfeng, covering an area of thousands of meters. That was a force field. It was a force field that could only be generated when one's combat strength had broken through the shackles and reached the 12-star level. The size of the force field was related to one's combat strength. The force field of thousands of meters was undoubtedly better than that of the barbaric dragon warrior who had fought a life-and-death battle with him. Moreover, Chen Zong keenly sensed that Yu Qianfeng's force field was a little different. It seemed to be actively controlled, instead of being passively released. It had integrated the power of flames. No, it should be said that it had integrated the power of a domain. The domain that Yu Tianfeng had mastered was a fire-type domain. After it was dispersed and integrated into the force field, its power would be even stronger. Taking the initiative to control, it meant that she was more adapted to and more familiar with her own power. When the force field was mastered to the extreme, it could also have extraordinary power. At least at the level of path manipulation realm, it could be comparable to a domain. If it was integrated with a domain, its power would increase. However, Chen Zong had not worked hard on the force field because of his sword way domain. Of course, this was also because he did not have enough time. After all, every aspect of cultivation required a lot of time and energy. The force field would only appear at the 12-star level. In other words, once his cultivation broke through to the Yuan underworld realm, his combat strength would reach the Yuan underworld realm. However, if he was not at the 12-star level, the force field would naturally disappear. Therefore, Chen Zong did not plan to study the force field now. He would look at it later. In an instant, a strange change occurred. The myriad flames lake instantly went berserk and soared into the sky. Without any warning, an incomparably huge blue hand broke out of the lake and grabbed towards Yu Tianfeng. Yu Tianfeng was directly caught. The force field that had integrated with the domain was crushed in an instant. Yu Tianfeng's entire body was caught, and her defensive power was broken. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Open! With a loud roar, Yu Qianfeng's voice shook the heavens as an extremely tyrannical power erupted from her body. Her shattered domain and force field expanded once more, blocking the blue flame giant hand. A pair of wings condensed behind Yu Qianfeng's back, and with a sudden flap, she soared into the sky. Senior sister has been defeated. Jade Void Dragon and the others widened their eyes in shock. "It's my turn," Chunzong said softly. The reason why he had not made a move before was because Chunzong had keenly sensed that the white flame person possessed very tyrannical power. It was completely at the peak of the path manipulation realm and very close to the Yuan underworld realm. Moreover, it had the Thousand Flames Lake as its backing. Although Yu Tianfeng was strong, she was still not stronger than the white flame person in terms of absolute power. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to make a move. Chapter 22:17. The roar reverberated through the heavens and earth, shaking the 9 heavens. The Thousand Flames Lake, which was tens of thousands of miles wide, was overturned as the blue flames surged like waves. In an instant, a pillar of blue flames shot up into the sky, bursting forth with unparalleled, terrifying power, as if it was going to shatter the heavens. The second pillar, the third pillar, the fourth pillar, one after another, pillars of blue flames shot out from the bottom of the lake, like a torrent of magma from a volcano. They shot up thousands of meters high, each of which was 10 meters wide, and their power was extremely shocking. Qi Mei, Di Lujiang, and Yu Sulong were shocked. If they were in the middle of such power, they would be injured directly. Yu Tianfeng wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. Although her expression was somewhat serious, there were strands of bright light in the depths of her eyes. That was her will to fight. The flame domain and force field combined and permeated the surroundings. Flames condensed out of thin air and revolved around Yu Tianfeng. They burned incessantly and emanated an incomparably blazing power. It was as if they could incinerate everything once they exploded. Just as Yu Tianfeng was about to attack again, there was a sudden change. A pillar of blue flames shot up into the sky from the center of the Thousand Flames Lake. Its power had reached the 12th star level, and it became even more overbearing. The heavens seemed to be about to shatter. Yu Tianfeng paused, and her expression became even more grave. When the 100-meter-wide pillar of blue flames soared into the sky, a 100-meter-tall figure emerged from the bottom of the lake and appeared in the center of the pillar of flames. As the pillar of flames dissipated, the figure was revealed. Its entire body was formed by blue flames, turning into a blue flame giant. It was 100 meters tall and was as strong as a mountain as it stood on the 10,000 Flames Lake. There was a white flame mark between its eyebrows, as if it was continuously burning. Blazing, violent, and extremely terrifying heat mixed with an earth-shattering pressure spread out, turning into an invisible storm that swept in all directions. The surrounding space was suppressed by an invisible force, covering a radius of 10,000 meters. That was the energy field. It was the energy field that the blue flame giant emitted. It spread out in all directions and suppressed everything. Sensing the range of the force field, Yu Qianfeng's expression turned grave. She had combined her flame domain with her force field, but could only cover a radius of 3,000 meters. Compared to 10,000 meters, the difference was obvious. However, only such a powerful enemy could allow him to enjoy himself to the fullest. With that thought, Yu Qianfeng's eyes seemed to burn with flames, and the flames around her burned even more fiercely. The long whip in her hand suddenly shook, and a large ball of flame burned fiercely like lava from a volcano. A roar resounded through the sky, shaking the 9 heavens. Sound waves rolled and blue flames raged. The blue flames swept out and turned into a 100-meter-tall wave. It was incomparably violent. With the blue flame giant as the center, it immediately rushed out in all directions. Yi Tianhua screamed and quickly retreated. Red-browed Emperor Lu Jiang and Jade Void Dragon's expressions also changed drastically. They immediately retreated. Only Yu Tianfeng did not move. Instead, she shook her long whip and a ball of blazing flame suddenly appeared. She attacked like a meteor. The collision shocked the heavens and the earth. The blue flame wave was defeated. Immediately, the blue flame giant punched Yu Tianfeng. Its terrifying power directly shattered the meteor and all the flames around Yu Tianfeng's body. It shattered the combination of her force field and flame domain, and sent Yu Tianfeng flying again. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Not bad, Chenzong said softly. His right hand landed on the sword hilt. His 5 fingers gently opened, and his joints protruded slightly. He exerted a little force, and a faint yet earth-shattering sword chime sounded. The sword chime was melodious and vast, like the sudden explosion of the absolute beginning divine thunder. It entered everyone's ears, causing their minds and wills to tremble uncontrollably. They felt as if a sharp sword had slashed past. The sword will seem to have turned into countless, spreading with the wind in all directions. It was everywhere. An extremely sharp ray of light shot out from the scabbard inch by inch. It became increasingly hot and bright. The ray of light was like a real sun hanging in the sky, shining through mountains and rivers, penetrating thousands of clouds. It was as if the heavenly light had broken through the clouds. It was unstoppable and could not be covered. Even though the blue flame surged into the sky and covered everything, it could not block the penetration of the sharp sword light. For a moment, Yu Tianfeng and the others felt that the light was too dazzling to look directly at. The blue flame giant also seemed to feel the terrifying power contained in the sword light, as if it was a terrifying threat. The fist that was about to hit Yu Tianfeng suddenly turned around and mercilessly hit Chenzong. The fist of the 100-meter-tall giant was enormous. The punch was like a meteor burning with deep blue flames falling from the sky. It was as if it had broken through the heavy clouds. It was surrounded by countless auras and a thunderous power. It directly bombarded toward Yi Shiwen. One punch. The power of this punch had reached the pinnacle of the 12-star level. Even Yu Tianfeng, who was strong in battle, had a solemn and dignified expression, let alone Qi Mei and the others. Of course, Qi Mei, Yu Shulong, and the others also saw that the person who had pulled out the sword was a disciple of a heavenly palace. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Even if he's not thrown out of the Myriad Flame's secret realm, he'll definitely be severely injured. Qi Mei sneered. Who does he think he is? Yu Shulong said. No matter how strong this person is, how can he be compared to First Senior Sister? Even First Senior Sister was injured by the blue flame giant. The power of this punch was terrifying to the extreme. In front of it, Chenzong appeared incomparably small, like a newborn kitten in front of a tiger king in its prime. It was as if Chenzong would be crushed by this punch. However, not only did Chenzong not have the slightest intention of retreating or dodging, even his expression was indifferent, like a gentle breeze in the sky. It was as if he could not feel any pressure, only his snow-white robe rustling under the extremely terrifying fist pressure that could destroy everything. When the blue flame giant's terrifying punch was less than 3 meters away, Chenzong pulled out the long sword on his left waist. The moment the sword was unsheathed, the sword light was extremely bright and dazzling. It was like a ray of absolute beginning divine light that shot across the sky, as if it was going to tear the heavens and earth apart. The sword was split into 2. The extremely violent punch, full of destructive power, was immediately cut apart by the extreme sword light. It was like a sharp knife cutting through a thin piece of paper. There was no resistance at all. The smooth feeling made Yu Tianfeng, Yu Shulong, Lu Jiang, Yi Tianhua, and the others feel extremely carefree from the depths of their hearts. It was like a knife cutting through butter. It was pleasing to the eye and made them feel extremely comfortable. Rip, rip, rip. The sword light cut through the blue flame giant's fist like a hot knife through butter. It continued to move upwards until the entire arm was split apart. A ray of sword light pierced through the shoulder and shot up into the sky, as if it was going to split the heavens. The difference in combat strength. Chenzong's current combat strength had reached the 2-star level of the Origin Underworld realm without using the Ling Wu Supreme technique, the Heart Flame Mystic technique, or the Absolute Beginning Sword Origin Body. The blue flame giant was indeed very strong, but it was only at the Tao controlling realm, which was the peak of the 12-star level. It was slightly stronger than Tianfeng, but not as strong as the origin underworld realm, let alone Chenzong. Therefore, Chenzong didn't use his full strength in this attack, but its power wasn't weak at all. Tianfeng and the others were all stunned. They couldn't believe it. It was just an unsheathed sword. There wasn't any astonishing speed or explosive power. It looked like an ordinary sword being unsheathed. That was all. What kind of technique was this? The sword light flashed again as Chunzong made a second attack. The sword light suddenly stretched and turned into a 100-meter-long crescent moon that shot across the sky. It was like a hot knife through butter. It was unparalleled and directly cut the blue flame giant's huge body in half. It was cut in half at the waist. However, the blue flames of the 10,000 Flames Lake surged and merged with the blue flame giant's body, causing the sword wounds on its arms and waist to quickly disappear and heal. It was as if it couldn't be killed. The 10,000 Flames Lake was the origin of the blue flame giant. As long as it was damaged, the power of the 10,000 Flames secret realm would heal it. The 10,000 Flames Lake was the center of the 10,000 Flames secret realm and gathered a lot of power. It was impossible to destroy the 10,000 Flames Lake. Even a transcendent powerhouse would find it difficult to do so. However, Chunzong had a way to deal with the blue flame giant. There was no need to destroy the 10,000 Flames Lake. He narrowed his eyes, and a sharp light pierced through the sky like a sword light. He focused on the burning white flame between the blue flame giant's eyebrows. That was the blue flame giant's core. The white flame essence of the 10,000 Flames Lake had gathered the power of the 10,000 Flames Lake and condensed it into a blue flame giant that could explode with astonishing power. If it hadn't been for the restrictions of the 10,000 Flames secret realm, it could have raised its power to the Yuan underworld level. At that time, even Shinzong wouldn't have been able to do anything to it. However, the 10,000 Flames secret realm was a secret realm for the Tao controlling realm disciples of the 10,000 Flames divine flame mountain to train. There wouldn't be any power beyond the Tao controlling realm. In an instant, Chunzong's body rose into the air as if there were clouds under his feet. In an instant, he was at the same level as the blue flame giant's eyebrows. He raised his sword in front of him and placed it between his eyebrows. It was the heart-refining sword technique, Sword 1. The 100-meter-long sword Tao domain condensed on the sword body in an instant. The sword light was extremely condensed, dazzling, and shiny. The sword light was like a hot knife through butter. It pierced through the void like an aurora and attacked the white flame between the blue flame giant's eyebrows. It was unstoppable. This was an absolute suppression of power. The power of this sword had completely exceeded the Tao controlling realm and reached the level of a 1-star Yuan underworld. No matter how strong the 10,000 Flames essence was, there was a limit to it. It couldn't block this sword light and was directly pierced through. In an instant, all its power was defeated. The blue flame giant lost control and started to disintegrate. Unexpectedly, this was a real dragon that had already soared above the 9 heavens. It was not something they could compare to. Di Liujiang's eyes flickered. There was unconcealable shock and a strange expression on his face. In the battle at the 1,000 Flames Lake, Qi Mei and the others had witnessed Qinzong's overwhelming combat strength. They immediately gave up on the idea of attacking Qinzong. They also sent out a message, informing everyone that Qinzong's combat strength was at the peak of the 12-star level and was unrivaled. They also told everyone not to attack him and to immediately avoid him if they encountered him. As one could imagine, when the personal disciples of the Divine Flame Mountain in the 1,000 Flames secret realm heard the news, their first reaction was disbelief. Their second reaction was shock. It was an incomparable shock that struck their hearts. However, the news was sent out by Qi Mei and the Jade Void Dragon, so they were very sure of it. After that, Chunzong did not encounter any trouble. On the contrary, the personal disciples of the Divine Flame Mountain immediately retreated when they saw Chunzong from afar, as if they were afraid that Chunzong would target them and steal the Thousand Flames essence. Even though Chunzong did not obtain a single Thousand Flames essence in the following month, it was easier for him to collect the Thousand Flames essence because the personal disciples of the Divine Flame Mountain had retreated. The Thousand Flames essence in the Fire Protection Medallion continued to increase. Finally, the 3 months were up. It was time for the Thousand Flames Secret Realm to close. The Fire Protection Medallion in everyone's hand began to glow with a fiery red light. It quickly spread out and covered their bodies. In the next moment, they flew into the air and rushed into the fire vortex in the sky. They flew along the path of the fire vortex. In the end, they flew in the opposite direction of the fire vortex and landed. There were already over 1,000 people waiting outside. They had all been kicked out before the time was up. Even though they had some gains, they had no hope of entering the Thousand Flames Secret Realm. 3 months have passed. The Thousand Flames Secret Realm has closed. Now, it's time to check your fire protection medallions, the elders said. It's about to start. I'm definitely not going to enter the Thousand Flames Secret Realm. I wonder who will enter the top 3? Is there a need to ask? It will definitely be first senior sister, second senior brother, and third senior brother. I don't think so. The personal disciples of the Heavenly Palace are not inferior to first senior sister. They might even be able to enter the top 3. Not many people knew that Tianfeng could not defeat Chunzong. Instead, she was defeated by Chunzong with a single strike. Therefore, the others did not know about it and thought that Chunzong's combat strength was similar to first senior sister's, or even weaker. Qimei glanced at Chunzong from afar and revealed a confident expression. In terms of combat strength, he was indeed inferior to the personal disciples of the Heavenly Palace. However, with Brother Di Liujiang's help, he believed that he could enter the top 3. Di Liujiang had transferred his Thousand Flames essence to Qimei the day before the Thousand Flames Secret Realm closed. This had greatly increased Qimei's Thousand Flames essence. This was allowed, but it could only be done within the Thousand Flames Secret Realm. It was not allowed outside the Thousand Flames Secret Realm. At the same time, a fiery light spread out and unfurled like a scroll. It turned into a list that displayed the points that each person had obtained in the Thousand Flames Grand Meet. The test began. The first name appeared on the list. His total points were more than 1,000, which was not a lot. It was impossible for him to enter the top 3 or even the top 100. Names continued to appear. Some of them had more than 10,000 points, but it was not a big deal. Watch carefully. Even if your combat strength is superb, you will not be able to enter the top 3. Qimei sneered at Chunzong and took out the fire protection token. In an instant, Qimei's name appeared on the list, followed by his points. 50,330 points. More than 50,000 points. That's a lot. The true disciples immediately cried out in surprise. This is impossible. How can he obtain so many points? Even the elder's eyes narrowed as his heart was filled with shock. How amazing was it to obtain more than 50,000 points? It seemed that no one had achieved that in the previous Thousand Flames Grand Meet. In other words, Qimei's points had broken the previous record. Even the previous record and the one before that did not exceed 50,000 points. He had really broken the record. Qimei raised his eyebrows and felt a little proud. However, he also knew that a small part of the 50,000 points were given to him by Di Liujiang. Therefore, it was not entirely his own collection, so there was nothing to be proud of. Even so, he could not help but feel proud. Jade Void Dragon and Tianfeng were also surprised. They looked at Di Liujiang thoughtfully. Based on their understanding of Qimei, it was impossible for him to obtain so many points. There must be other reasons. However, he had done it willingly. There was nothing to say. Chunzong was also surprised, but his expression did not change. He still looked indifferent, which made Qimei very unhappy. Not long after, Jade Void Dragon took out the fire protection token. After the test, his name appeared on the list along with his points. 39,800 points. Chi Mei was shocked. If Di Lu Jiang had not given him the essence of all flames, his points would not be as high as Jade Void Dragon's. But now, the hollow Jade Dragon was no match for him, and the gap was not small. Thinking about it, one of the top 3 spots should belong to him. Although Jade Void Dragon had expected this, he could not help but frown when he saw his points. Names appeared one after another, but their points were all less than 30,000. Chi Mei was currently in first place. Finally, Yu Tianfeng took out her fire protection token. Yu Tianfeng's name and points appeared on the list. 48,550. What? First senior sister lost? Third senior brother is so powerful that he could obtain so many points. All of them were in disbelief. Chi Mei was first, Yu Tianfeng was second, and Jade Void Dragon was third. If there were no accidents, the 3 people who would enter the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace would be these 3 people. At this moment, Chunzong took out his fire protection token. In an instant, everyone's attention was focused on him. The elder was slightly surprised. Was there something special about this disciple of Heavenly Intention Palace? He did not know what had happened in the Thousand Flames secret territory. Chunzong. The 2 words appeared on the list, followed by the points. Perhaps it was a prank, or perhaps it was a suspense, but in any case, the points appeared from the last digit. 9, 8, 6, 3. The number had already reached the thousands. Only the last one, or rather, the first one, was left. How many would it be? For a moment, everyone held their breaths. If it was 3, it meant that he had less points than Jade Void Dragon. If it was 4, he would be in the top 3. If it was 5, not only would he be in the top 3, but he would also be in first place. It can't be 5, Chi Mei said to himself. He had relied on Emperor Liujiang's help to obtain 50,000 points. It was impossible for Chunzong to have so many points. At most, he should have more than 40,000 points. The last word appeared. 5. In an instant, everyone's eyes widened. They thought that it was an illusion. 5. That was 53,689 points, which was much more than Chi Mei's points. Chunzong's name and points surpassed Chi Mei's. He was in first place. As expected, Yu Tianfeng muttered to herself. Jade Void Dragon smiled bitterly. He had misjudged Chunzong. Chi Mei, on the other hand, was at a loss. How is this possible? I have to rely on others' help to get so many points. How can this guy get so many points? No one must have helped him. He must have relied on his own efforts. Seeing that he was in first place, Chunzong could not help but smile. Chapter 2219. I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn Festival. First, Chunzong was ranked first in the Myriad Flame Grand Tournament. When the essence of 10,000 flames flew out from the fire protection medallion, it filled the air and turned into an ocean. In the middle of the ocean was a white flame that kept burning. There were also 7 purple flames surrounding it. Further out were hundreds of blue flames. Further out were thousands of orange flames, and the outermost were tens of thousands of red flames. 7 top-grade myriad flame essences. Damn it, I don't even have one. Look at that white flame. Look at that white flame. Super grade. It's the legendary super grade myriad flame essence. Astonishment. The group of true inheritors were all astonished. Even that elder was the same. It had been many years since a super grade myriad flame essence appeared. It was unexpected that one would appear this time. It was a pleasant surprise. According to the rules, half of the myriad flame essence must be handed over, regardless of whether you're a member of Divine Flame Mountain or an outsider. As that elder spoke, he waved his hand, and the 10,000 flames essence disappeared one by one. They were all taken away. None of the crimson 10,000 flame essences were missing. The orange 10,000 flame essences were missing. The blue 10,000 flame essences were missing. And 4 of the 7 purple 10,000 flame essences were missing. Most importantly, the white 10,000 flame essence was taken away. Seeing this, Chi Mei and the other pro-disciples of Divine Flame Mountain were delighted. A stock of 10,000 flames essence was not only worth 10,000 points, but more importantly, it was extremely precious and hard to come by. It was extremely beneficial to the cultivation of some of the secret techniques of the Divine Flame Mountain. Now that the super-grade Myriad Flame Essence was taken away, the pro-disciples of Divine Flame Mountain were qualified to exchange for it. Half of the Myriad Flame Essence was taken away. However, half of the Myriad Flame Essence was taken away. It was a different matter. 4 of the 7 top-grade Myriad Flame Essences were taken away, and the only super-grade Myriad Flame Essence was taken away. They were replenished with the low-grade and mid-grade Myriad Flame Essences. However, Chunzong did not say anything about it. So be it. His goal was the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. Everything else was secondary. Even if all the Myriad Flame Essences were taken away, Chunzong would not care too much about it, as long as they could enter the Myriad Flame Furnace. With a wave of his hand, Chunzong kept the remaining Myriad Flame Essences. It would be helpful for his Blazing Dragon Breath cultivation technique. The elder glanced at Chunzong. He seemed reluctant, but he eventually said, "According to the rules of the Myriad Flame Grand Tournament, the top 3 will be given the opportunity to enter the Myriad Flame Furnace. We will inform you when you will be given the opportunity." But of course, if Chunzong's background was ordinary, he might have been able to get away with it. However, he was the 5th personal disciple of the Heavenly Will Palace's wholehearted Tao Lord, and his eldest senior brother was someone who could shake the entire northern battlefront. The 10,000 Flame Grand Meet came to an end. Brother Chunzong, the Jade Void Dragon, caught up from behind. "Brother Chun, please come to my Jade Dragon Peak and try a cup of 9 Flowers Heavenly Flame Wine." The Jade Void Dragon sincerely invited. "That won't be necessary. Feel free to speak your mind." Chunzong responded unhurriedly. "Brother Chun, your combat strength is monstrous. Even Great Senior Sister is no match for you. Moreover, you are not a disciple of Divine Flame Mountain. The Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace is just icing on the cake for you." The hollow Jade Dragon was a bit annoyed, but it still suppressed its anger and said, "My cultivation has reached a bottleneck. I don't know how much time it will take for me to break through. If I can enter the furnace to cultivate, I have an 80% chance of breaking through and reaching the 12th star. I hope Brother Chun can grant my wish and give the spot to me." "Don't even think about it." Chunzong refused without hesitation. His opponent needed the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace, but he needed it even more. How could he give it away? Having said that, Chunzong ignored the Jade Void Dragon and flew up into the sky. He turned into a sword radiance and flew back to Dragon Flame Peak. The hollow Jade Dragon stared at Chunzong's back with gloomy eyes and could not help but clench its fists. Afterwards, Chunzong remained in the cave to cultivate. He waited for the notice to enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. He had already reached the limit of his cultivation, so there was obviously no way for him to increase it any further. However, Chunzong could use the Fire Dragon Breath technique to constantly absorb and refine the essence of the flames, increasing the strength of the Violet Star Dragon Flames. As long as he could raise the flames to the 9th cycle of Way Manipulation, he would be able to assist him again and increase his battle prowess. Under the nourishment of the essence of the flames, the Violet Star Dragon Flames constantly grew stronger. Before long, a sea of flames descended from the sky. It shrank before the cave and condensed into a figure. "Is little friend Chunzong here?" A somewhat low voice rang out and transmitted into the Flame Dragon Cave. "What is it, Senior?" Chunzong stopped cultivating and asked. "I'm the Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Peak of the Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. I have come to ask for a favor." The deep voice rang out in Chunzong's ears. The Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Peak actually used the words, "ask for a favor." Chunzong's expression turned serious. "If it's about the spot for the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace, please don't say anything." Chunzong immediately replied, blocking the other's path. Otherwise, it would be bad if he was rejected after being pointed out. "Young friend, I have come for the spot for the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace." Although Chunzong had already rejected him, the Grand Elder acted as if he did not hear him. He said decisively, "As long as you are willing to give up the spot, You can make a request to me that is within my power. Thank you for your kind intentions, First Elder. However, I came all the way here from the Heavenly Will Palace for the Tribulation God Fire Furnace, Chunzong replied. Otherwise, the Lord of Will wouldn't have sought out the Lord of God Fire. Chunzong said the last sentence somewhat jokingly, but it was also to intimidate the Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Peak. The Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Peak did not dare say anything when it involved the Master of Intentions and the Master of Divine Flame. Even though he knew that Chunzong was using the tiger's skin as a banner, he did not dare to refute. In anger, the Grand Elder of the Divine Flame Peak could only leave. This young man is very determined. He doesn't want to give up the spot for the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. A group of elders gathered. The Great Elder of the Divine Flame Peak was furious. This young man has a strong background. We can't use force to force him to give up the spot. He won't listen to force or persuasion. It's not like there's no way. A gloomy-looking elder said thoughtfully as his eyes flickered with a bright light. What is it? The other elders all asked. The time to enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace has not been decided yet. Then, let's change it. Only one person can enter at a time. When the time comes, let the three of them enter in turns. Let Chunzong enter at the end. That makes sense. After the three of them enter the furnace separately, the furnace's power will not be exhausted. There will still be some left. When the time comes, let Chunzong enter. Anyway, Chunzong does not know the details of the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. Well, for the disciples of the Divine Flame Peak, this is the only way. Chunzong and the others did not know that the allocation of spots for the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was decided just like that. Before long, Chunzong also received the notice that he would enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace in half a month. Half a month. Chunzong nodded to himself and continued to cultivate. Now, the Purple Star Dragon Flame had already reached the 6th revolution of the Tao manipulation realm. It had already absorbed and refined all the low-level essence of 10,000 flames, and had also refined part of the mid-level essence of 10,000 flames. However, he did not know whether the Purple World Star Dragon Flame could reach the 9th turn of the Tao controlling realm after refining all the essence of myriad flames. After all, this was the Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain, not the Will Heavenly Palace. Chunzong had nowhere to go. He could only stay in the Dragon Flame Cave and cultivate. Chi Mei was the first to enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. After coming out, his aura was turbulent. His entire body seemed to be filled with a shocking flame aura that was about to burst out. He was in a very unstable state. However, Chi Mei was in a good state. He was full of smiles. He had to be like this because he was excited. He did not expect that entering the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace would benefit him so much. He was only one step away from breaking the shackles, and this step was not so difficult to take. He only needed to go back and cultivate in seclusion for a while. Then he might be able to break the shackles. At that time, he would also possess a 12-star combat strength. Yu Tianfeng was the second to enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. A day later, Yu Tianfeng walked out of the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace with a blazing aura. Her entire body seemed to be burning. Anyone who looked at her would feel as though their eyes were burning. Her power was extremely shocking. This was because Yu Tianfeng had gained a lot in the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. Her strength had increased, and she could not control it for the time being. She still needed to go into seclusion for a while. When I come out of seclusion, I will be at the Yuan Underworld stage. Yu Tianfeng thought to herself. She could not help but think of Chunzong. Previously, when they had exchanged blows at the Myriad Flames Lake, that terrifying sharpness had made her feel an indescribable sense of horror. However, after breaking through to the Yuan Underworld stage, her combat strength would increase and she would be able to exchange blows with this person again. The third to enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was the Jade Void Dragon. His entry was somewhat sneaky. However, it was fine as long as he could enter. Of course, the Jade Void Dragon felt extremely sullen. He was the second true disciple of the Tao controlling realm on the Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. However, he had actually entered the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace like a thief, afraid that others would find out. For no reason, the Jade Void Dragon felt a little annoyed with Chunzong. However, the Jade Void Dragon still felt very satisfied when he thought of being able to enter the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. When he came out after entering, there would not be much power left in the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. It would still be somewhat useful, but it would still be the same as what the three of them had gained. This was also why only 3 people were allowed to enter. The 4th person to enter would not be half as effective as the others. Chunzong did not know this. When the Jade Illusory Dragon walked out of the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace, his aura fluctuated like an invisible flame that was about to soar into the sky. A terrifying pressure fell on the surroundings, suppressing everything. It was a force field. Chapter 22:20. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Chunzong stepped into the Dragon Flame Cave and left the Dragon Flame Peak. He flew towards the Furnace Peak where the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was located. The appearance of Oven Peak was like a huge oven that stood on the Divine Flame Mountain. It was formed naturally, and there were no traces of human activity. It was very suitable for the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Oven. Chunzong did not know much about the rules of the Divine Flame Mountain. Hence, he did not think too much about it. In front of him was a huge furnace that was 100 meters tall. Its 4 legs stood straight on the ground. The entire furnace was pitch black, but its surface was covered with crimson lines. They were irregular and looked like magma was contained within. It was shining brightly and gave off an astonishingly vigorous and scorching aura. Just standing in front of the furnace, Chunzong felt very small. It was as if he was facing a terrifying expert. Fortunately, it was not an enemy. Of course, the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was not a person. It was just a treasure. The furnace opened, and Chunzong stepped into it. "You only have one day. Cherish it," the elder who was guarding the furnace said expressionlessly. However, he was mocking him in his heart. There was not much energy left in the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. It was not enough to support a person's cultivation. At most, it could only support half of it. The effect would not be as good as that of the previous 3 people. Of course, he did not know that. However, the Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was the #1 treasure of the Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Most disciples of the Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain would not have the chance to enter it even once in their lives. It was already a great fortune for an outsider and a disciple of another force to enter. How could he expect more? Chunzong did not know about the dirty thoughts of the expressionless elder. He stepped into the furnace. There seemed to be a series of rumbling sounds that continuously came from all directions, directly penetrating into Chunzong's eardrums, causing the divine sense C to rumble endlessly. Flames rushed out from all directions, like the roar of a fire dragon. The incomparably scorching high temperature continuously attacked Chunzong from all directions. It was as if it wanted to refine Chunzong like a pill. Alchemy. This was the function of the furnace. It refined a person like a medicinal pill, removed impurities, and broke through the shackles and limits. This was the function of the myriad tribulation divine flame furnace. However, that wasn't Chunzong's purpose. He wanted to break through his cultivation and realm here. He wanted to borrow the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace's other function, which was usually overlooked by the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain, to protect the soul. The flames of the cauldron contained a flame that targeted the soul. This flame would temper the soul, allowing the soul to condense faster and smoother. This was an invisible form of tempering, so it was secondary to the disciples of the Divine Flames Mountain. But for Chunzong, it was very important. Under the scorching heat, Chunzong was neither melted nor scorched. He sat down cross-legged, adjusting his condition and regulating his spirit. When his essence, energy, and spirit reached their peak, Chunzong began to break through. This time, Chunzong had thought it through. He didn't want to give up on refining his body. Therefore, he wanted to break through qi refining and body refining at the same time. Only in this way could he maintain his advantage and have a stronger combat capability. Then, how could he break through qi refining and body refining at the same time? After all, the breakthroughs of the two were in different directions. Qi cultivation was to condense a primordial spirit to guard the spirit's C, dominate the spirit's C, and control the body. Qi cultivation was to shatter the primordial spirit and scatter it into the body, completely fusing it with the body, becoming one. The first was to condense. The second was to scatter. Condense and scatter were the opposite of fire and water. Then, how could Chunzong cultivate qi refining and body refining at the same time so that they could advance at the same time and break through at the same time? On this point, Chunzong had already thought it through. Before this, Chunzong had been consciously tempering his spirit. Although he hadn't broken through the limit, he had become more condensed. Now it was time to split. Split his divine soul into two. When it was split into two, his spirit would also be split into two. Just nice, he could condense two primordial spirits. One primordial spirit would be used for qi refining and the other for body refining. This was the feasible method that Chunzong finally came up with after much consideration. Moreover, Chunzong had gone through many deductions and the success rate was very high. Of course, although the success rate was very high, the process was not easy. At least, Chunzong had experienced the pain of splitting his divine soul in two before. That was when he condensed the Azuric doppelganger. However, when he condensed the Azuric doppelganger, he really did split his divine soul in half, causing his own divine soul to be damaged. Fortunately, the ancient Azura king's divine soul made up for it. This time, however, it was different. The divine soul was divided into two in order to condense two primordial spirits. When one of the primordial spirits was broken up and perfectly combined with the divine body, the divine soul would condense again in the divine sea and become the carrier of the consciousness. Otherwise, the body refining cultivator would become a person without a divine soul. That would be the same as a living dead. They would have a body without a corresponding soul to use and would have no consciousness. When the primordial spirit was scattered and perfectly combined with the divine body would reach the profound realm from the initial success. The divine soul would then recondense in the spirit's sea to carry the divine body's consciousness and control the profound realm divine body. However, the power of the recondensed divine soul couldn't be compared with the previous divine soul. After all, most of the divine soul's power was integrated into the divine body, leaving only a small part of the divine soul's power on the divine soul as the foundation to maintain the divine soul. That was all. Therefore, a body-refining cultivator's divine soul defense was often inferior to a qi-refining cultivator. Their advantage lay in the strength of their divine bodies. Each had its own merits. However, if he could obtain treasures that were beneficial to the divine soul, there was still hope for his divine soul to recover. In other words, if Chunzong succeeded in breaking through both qi-refining cultivator and body-refining cultivator, the next step would be to find treasures that were useful for the recovery of the divine soul. However, those treasures were very precious and hard to come by. It wouldn't be easy to obtain them. Everything had been thought through. Everything had been prepared. He began to split his divine soul. The heart sword principle condensed into a long sword. Without hesitation, it released the most shocking sharpness. It seemed to tear the void apart and slash directly at his divine soul. In an instant, an indescribable pain exploded, driving Chunzong crazy. His divine soul was thus split into two equal halves. The pain was about to destroy Chunzong's consciousness. Chunzong sank into darkness and into an abyss, unable to think. However, Chunzong managed to hold it in. He managed to hold it in with his extremely strong and tenacious spiritual willpower. His powerful mind also played a role. Enduring the extreme pain, Chunzong's consciousness also split into two. Fortunately, Chunzong had cultivated the Heart Sutra. He could use the heart two wills very smoothly. As a result, it was extremely easy for Chunzong to control the two halves of his consciousness at the same time. Even under the intense pain of his divine soul being split into two, he could still control it with ease. The two halves of his consciousness were immediately controlled by Chunzong's consciousness and began to condense. At the same time, the Taichu sword, origin, and divine body power were also mobilized. Even the power of the heart sword principle and the power of the great path of the world began to converge. Divine soul, it was the gathering of everything in one's body. One had to gather and condense everything in one's body. The divine soul, essence, chi, cultivation power, great path power, and everything else had to be condensed into one, leaving behind an imprint and completely controlled. Therefore, Yuan underworld powerhouses' control of their own power would reach an astonishing level even if they didn't deliberately train. After all, after condensing a divine soul, the control of one's own power would become an instinct. In a situation where no one else knew, Chunzong was undergoing an incomparably crazy breakthrough. He was breaking through at the same time in both chi refinement and body refinement. When advancing from the demigod realm to the Tao manipulation realm, the simultaneous breakthrough of both would attract a heavenly tribulation. This was already considered crazy, but what Chunzong was doing now was even crazier. Splitting one's divine soul into two was already quite dangerous. The slightest carelessness and failure would result in damage to one's divine soul. Fortunately, Chunzong succeeded. Splitting one's divine soul into two was just the beginning. He still had to endure the extreme pain of having his divine soul split into two and control all of his own power, combining it in an orderly manner and condensing it into a divine soul. A divine soul wasn't something that could be condensed casually. There needed to be a sequence. A divine soul was like an evolution of one's own body. It was a miniature version with the same appearance as one's self. Therefore, it had to have a perfect structure. With the divine soul as the divine soul, the essence, chi, and spirit as the divine soul's body, the great path power as the divine soul's blood, and the great path power as the divine soul's bones, a complete divine soul would be forged. There would be a divine soul, a body, blood, bones, and so on. Of course, a divine soul was a collection of power. There is no such thing as blood, bones, organs, and so on. That was just a description and a metaphor used to describe the condensation of a divine soul. It wasn't done casually, but there was a sequence involved. Chunzong's chi cultivation and body tempering condensed separately under the control of his divine soul. They didn't interfere with each other, as if they were two separate people. In the vast and boundless divine sea, two shadows stood side by side in the void of the divine sea, motionless. Traces of light turned into silk threads that shuttled back and forth and condensed, constantly solidifying. Waves of power continued to merge into the two shadows, becoming clearer and clearer. The two shadows were divine souls. They were Chunzong's divine soul. One was the divine soul for chi cultivation, and the other was the divine soul for body tempering. Gradually, differences began to appear between the two primordial spirits. Because of the different powers that were fused into them, the chi refining primordial spirit had a sense of elegance, as high as the sky, while the body refining primordial spirit was heavy, as solid as the earth, and filled with power. This was also the difference between chi cultivation and body tempering. One was chi, and the other was gravity. As Chunzong continued to condense, the pain of having his divine soul split into two seemed to gradually fade away and disappear. Chunzong was completely immersed in the condensation of his divine soul. Chapter 22-21. At the edge of the vast divine sea, the inner demon condensed again as if it had been awakened. Primordial spirit, it belongs to me, the great demon king. The inner demon let out a silent roar. As long as it occupied the primordial spirit and completely controlled it, it would be able to control everything in this body, including the soul. Then, no matter what happened, it would not fall into a deep sleep again, because at that time, it would completely become Chunzong, and Chunzong would also become the great demon king, who would be invincible in the void. Thinking of this, the inner demon wanted to laugh out loud, but it suddenly stopped. Its scarlet eyes kept flashing with cold light. Now it could not be discovered. It had to hide and wait until the primordial spirit was formed. Then it would take action and directly invade the primordial spirit and occupy it. Chunzong did not know that the inner demon had awakened and condensed again. All his attention was on the formation and condensation of the primordial spirit, and he could not afford to be distracted. The two primordial spirits were condensed together. As the primordial spirits continued to condense, gradually, the facial features changed from no to blurred, from blurred to clear. Vaguely, the blurred facial features seemed to be 70 to 80% similar to Chunzong's. Once they were condensed, there was no difference between them and Chunzong. Condense, condense, condense. The flames in the furnace continued to burn, spewing out tongues of fire. They were like fire dragons that engulfed Chunzong's entire body, tempering and burning him. The power of Chunzong's body and cultivation base also became increasingly pure under the influence of these blazing, mysterious flames. His power also increased little by little without him realizing it. This was just a side effect. The most important thing was that the condensation of the primordial spirit was also faster with the help of the tribulation divine flame furnace. The facial features were completely condensed, exactly the same as Chunzong's, but the expressions of the two primordial spirits were different. The chi-refining primordial spirit looked calm and peaceful, while the body-refining primordial spirit looked arrogant, as if it was full of fighting spirit. Next was a very important step, which was also a breakthrough step. That was to truly integrate his consciousness into his primordial spirit, enter his primordial spirit, and then use his primordial spirit to dominate his own body and control all power. Refining the primordial spirit required one more step, which was to disintegrate the primordial spirit and turn it into countless pieces of primordial spirit particles, which carried the scattered God soul and soul consciousness into every part of the God body. Inside and outside, from top to bottom, they didn't miss anything. It was time to break through. Two parts of Chunzong's consciousness rushed towards the two primordial spirits. He was about to enter them and take control of them. In an instant, a sudden change occurred. The great demon king is here. A shocking sound that was like the explosion of dark demonic lightning suddenly sounded. It was completely unexpected and took the initiative to gain the upper hand. This caused Chunzong's consciousness to pause and be slightly startled. Immediately, he increased his speed and charged out. At the same time, a black light filled the air, carrying two scarlet lights that crossed the sky like lightning. Their speed was so fast that they didn't seem to be obstructed at all. It was as if the end of the world was right in front of them. When one part of Chunzong's consciousness rushed into the primordial spirit of the chi refining primordial spirit, the black light also entered the primordial spirit. As for the primordial spirit of the body, refining primordial spirit, wasn't disturbed at all. The demon of the heart knew that Chunzong had chosen to break through both the chi refining primordial spirit and the body refining primordial spirit at the same time. Thus, as long as he occupied the primordial spirit of the chi refining primordial spirit, he could control everything in his body. If he occupied the primordial spirit of the body refining primordial spirit, it would be scattered and integrated into the God body. At that time, he would lose his dominant position. The demon of the heart could see it clearly. That was why it competed with Chunzong for the primordial spirit of the chi refining primordial spirit. Chunzong's consciousness and the demon of the heart entered the primordial spirit at the same time. The demon of the heart wasn't the God soul. It was actually a mutation of the consciousness, which could also be regarded as consciousness. The moment the demon of the heart entered the primordial spirit, a wisp of invisible flame started burning. The flame was the mysterious flame of the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. The flame could calm the mind, stabilize the primordial spirit, and resist the demon of the heart. Now, as the flame burned, the demon of the heart was blocked, preventing it from invading the primordial spirit and the God soul. Damn it! The demon of the heart was furious. It was blocked. How could this happen? Now was the best chance for it. If it missed the invasion of the primordial spirit, it would have to pay a higher price to occupy the God soul and the body in the future. The price would be 10 times or even 100 times more effort and price. This time, no matter what, it had to succeed and occupy the primordial spirit. Even if it had to pay a high price, it had to succeed. As long as it completely occupied the primordial spirit, the body would belong to it, and the price it had paid could be slowly recovered. Explode. Without hesitation, the demon of the heart detonated itself. In an instant, a terrifying power erupted. The power rushed out and was controlled by the demon of the heart. It didn't explode in all directions. Instead, it condensed into a terrifying force and blasted forward, breaking the invisible flame of the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. A black light also flew out in an instant. It rushed out of the crack in the invisible flame and rushed towards Chunzong's primordial spirit and the God soul. The demon of the heart was unusually fierce and unafraid of death. It had an aura of either success or death. It was fighting to survive, leaving no chance for itself. Fast, extremely fast. Its speed was even faster than Chunzong's consciousness. Even though Chunzong's consciousness was very close to the God soul, almost touching it, the black light still chased after it. It turned into a ferocious demon god with its teeth bared and claws brandished. It directly pounced on Chunzong's consciousness, as if it had abandoned all defense. The God soul was so close, but it couldn't enter. Because if it wanted to enter the God soul, it would be attacked by the demon of the heart and would most likely be injured. Even though it had amazing control, it couldn't avoid the demon of the heart because it was its own demon of the heart. It could be said that the demon of the heart also knew what it knew, and it was very pure. To some extent, the demon of the heart was even better than Chunzong. Fight! Chunzong's consciousness fluctuated, and he immediately turned into a human figure to block the demon of the heart. Fight! It was an extremely fierce battle. Chunzong had to resist the demon of the heart, but the demon of the heart didn't care about its own injuries. It only wanted to occupy the primordial spirit. Only in this way could it completely control this body. Suddenly, something strange happened again. The demon's slaying spell, which was suspended in the air above the deity's sea and condensed by the master of the heart, flashed with rays of cold light like a black moon. Suddenly, the cold light turned from black to white. Slash! The white moon instantly slashed down from the sky towards the demonic god formed by the inner demon. It was unstoppable and unstoppable. In an instant, the demon of the heart was hit and directly torn apart. An extremely sharp and miserable shriek followed. After the demon god was slashed apart, rays of white light flashed. It was as though the white sun was shining, melting the ice and snow, causing the blackness to continuously dissipate. It was seriously injured. The demon of the heart had already used a lot of its power to break free from the invisible flame resistance of the eternal tribulation divine flame furnace, causing it to be injured and its power to decrease. If it wasn't for its determination to die, it probably wouldn't have been able to block Chunzong's consciousness. But now, under the demon's slaying spell, the demon of the heart felt that it was being cut apart, and it was being incessantly burned by a terrifying force, as if it was being purified. Explode. A second explosion. Even though he knew that the explosion this time would cause him indescribable injuries and might even cause him to dissipate, he had no choice but to do so. If he didn't do so, the consequences would be even more severe. Without hesitation, The demon of the heart was very decisive and ruthless to itself. The explosion couldn't completely disperse the power of the demon-slaying spell, but an extremely fine black light shot out from it. Its speed was several times faster than before, and it was beyond Chunzong's detection and reaction. It directly entered his primordial spirit and spirit. Chunzong was horrified. His consciousness hurriedly turned into a sword light and rushed forward, entering the primordial spirit and spirit without any obstruction. As soon as it entered the spirit, it felt as if it had settled down spontaneously, as if a boat had returned to the harbor after its voyage. But Chunzong didn't enjoy it, but quickly searched. The demon of the heart had entered the primordial spirit and spirit before him. Logically speaking, if the demon of the heart had entered first, even if it had entered a little earlier, it could have taken control of the spirit in an instant, preventing his consciousness from entering it. From then on, the primordial spirit would have been completely occupied. But now, although the demon of the heart had entered a little earlier, it didn't resist at all. Instead, the primordial spirit was under his control. After careful inspection, Chunzong found that there was an extremely fine black light in the primordial spirit. It was so fine that it was almost undetectable. That was the core of the demon of the heart. His consciousness shook and instantly rushed out, trying to smash the black light, but it was useless. The tenacity of the black light was beyond his expectations. Chunzong found that he couldn't do anything about it all, so he could only give up for the time being. Moreover, the black light existed in the spirit and seemed to be integrated with his spirit. It was as if there was no distinction between them. If he wanted to completely destroy it, the power would be too strong and it might damage his spirit. I'll ask Master when I get back. Chunzong had no choice but to do so. Since his consciousness had already entered the primordial spirit and taken control of the spirit and spirit, the next step of the breakthrough should be continued. Condensing the primordial spirit was only the first step of breaking through to the divine ascension realm. But once the breakthrough started, it couldn't be stopped. Otherwise, it would only fall short. Therefore, there was no such thing as a pseudo-Yuan underling between the Tao manipulation realm and the Yuan underling realm. A breakthrough was a breakthrough, and there was no such thing as a level between the two. The breakthrough this time was naturally a breakthrough in both chi refinement and body refinement. Chapter 22:22. I wish everyone a happy and blissful Mid-Autumn festival. I wonder what this kid is doing in the furnace. The expressionless elder's expression changed slightly as he guessed. However, he couldn't find out, as his duty was only to guard the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. Chunzong was still breaking through inside the furnace. Both the first step of condensing a primordial spirit and the second step of breaking through required some time. The flames of the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace could speed up the process and shorten the time. Of course, Chunzong didn't know that if the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace's power hadn't been enough, the inner demon wouldn't have been able to break through its defenses so easily and trigger the demon's severing curse. It was precisely because the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace's power wasn't enough that Chunzong was in danger. Of course, the inner demon was too strong. Even if the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace's power was sufficient, it would only cause more damage to the inner demon and not be able to eliminate it. However, Chunzong didn't know any of this. In any case, although the danger of the inner demon hadn't been directly eliminated, it had been overcome. As for the future, that would depend on it. Now, it was a cultivation breakthrough. Furthermore, it was a simultaneous breakthrough in both chi refinement and body tempering. This was a breakthrough that many cultivators had never been able to achieve since ancient times. His chi refinement power was controlled by the sweeping power of his primordial spirit. The Taichu sword origin also began to transform. This was a qualitative change. It was the power of the Yuan underworld realm, purer and more powerful than the Tao manipulation realm. At the same time, the heart sword path also underwent a transformation. At the Tao Manipulation Realm's 9 transformations, it was equivalent to grasping 90% of the power of the Great Path. The Yuan Underworld Realm was equivalent to grasping 100% of the power of the Great Path. Although there was a difference of 10% between 90% and 100%, it was an improvement between incomplete and perfect. The increase in power was very significant and shocking. The Yuan Underworld Realm was different from the Tao Manipulation Realm. It wasn't just the condensation of the primordial spirit. There was also a significant improvement and transformation in terms of cultivation strength and the power of the Great Path. It was an increase of several times. Because of this, even a 12-star Tao Manipulation Realm combat strength couldn't beat a 1-star Yuan Underworld Realm combat strength. When his Qi refinement cultivation truly stepped into the Yuan Underworld Realm, his body tempering cultivation also made a breakthrough. It wasn't difficult to separate the body refining primordial spirit and integrate it into the world divine body. The difficulty lay in the precision. One had to slowly integrate it into every inch of the body. If the small success divine body realm cultivator was still considered to have a body of flesh and blood, then the great success divine body realm cultivator would begin to transform into a body of energy. This was a kind of qualitative improvement. When the primordial spirit merged with the divine body and transformed into a great success divine body, not only did it have terrifying divine power, but it also had the shocking ability to regrow broken limbs. Some injuries could be healed in an extremely short amount of time. When the divine body was cultivated to its peak, it could not only heal injuries and regrow limbs, but it could also regenerate from a drop of blood. Hence, powerful body refinement cultivators were extremely difficult to kill. Of course, it wasn't that they couldn't be killed. Instead, they had to grind away at their vitality and strength. If they couldn't recover, they would naturally die, or they could target their weakness, which was their soul. No matter what, the strength of the soul of a body refinement cultivator was ultimately inferior to that of a Qi refinement cultivator. This was a publicly acknowledged fact. Hence, many body refinement cultivators would search for secret treasures or secret techniques that could defend the soul to make up for their shortcomings and shortcomings. As for Qinzong, he didn't have such doubts because Qinzong was also a Qi refinement cultivator. Of course, it would also be good if he could obtain secret treasures that could protect the soul. However, more importantly, there were still divine medicines and treasures that could restore the soul. Integrate. The scattered primordial spirit continuously integrated into the world divine body, giving Qinzong an extremely wonderful feeling. It was as if his world divine body was transforming into a primordial spirit body. The integration was inseparable and became one. It was as if they had returned to the same place. When the last bit of primordial spirit particles integrated into the world divine body, Qinzong's world divine body suddenly shook. Waves of energy burst out in his world divine body, shuttling back and forth endlessly. It was as if the waves were surging, as if the wind was blowing, and as if there were ripples. Divine body, great accomplishment. In an instant, Qinzong could clearly feel that his control over the world divine body had reached an extremely astonishing level. It was far better than before. Because of this, he could clearly feel that the power contained in the great accomplishment divine body had reached an extremely terrifying level. The difference between the great accomplishment divine body and the small accomplishment divine body was very obvious. The great path of the world was an extremely top-notch great path. The power of the great path of the world was originally stronger than many other great paths. As such, the power of the great accomplishment divine body of the world divine body was extremely shocking. Qinzong estimated that an ordinary Yuan underworld cultivator might not be a match for him. The Tao controlling realm was divided into 9 transformations. However, the Yuan underworld realm didn't have any. Instead, it was divided into initial, intermediate, advanced peak, or initial, intermediate, advanced peak, and so on. Tyrannical, extremely tyrannical power wantonly within his body like the surging waves of the sea. It was as if he could destroy a mountain with a single punch. The furnace couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. Of course, this was just an illusion. Even if his strength was 100 times stronger, he wouldn't be able to cause any damage to the furnace. It was impossible. The changes continued. Specks of light diffused from his body and flowed towards the spirit sea. In the end, they converged into a consciousness within the spirit sea. It was the consciousness of the body-tempering primordial spirit. However, this consciousness seemed somewhat illusory, like rootless duckweed. It had a weak feeling that it couldn't carry anything. It seemed as if it would be blown away by a gust of wind, making the consciousness within it feel insecure. If this body-tempering primordial spirit was compared to the chi-tempering primordial spirit, the chi-tempering primordial spirit was like living in a comfortable and sturdy fortress that was protected on the outside. Its consciousness was like living in a pavilion within the fortress, while the body-tempering primordial spirit was exposed to the open space without any defenses. The consciousness within it was more like living in a thatched hut. The contrast was obvious. From the looks of it, he had to find treasures that could restore the primordial spirit. It was also necessary to find secret treasures or secret techniques that could protect the primordial spirit. The more the better, and the stronger the better. Otherwise, if the body-tempering primordial spirit was targeted, it would be disadvantageous to him. Now, both his chi-tempering and body-tempering cultivation had finally broken through. Yuan Underworld Realm. Great Mastery Divine Body Realm. They advanced side by side. Chunzong tried to use the Lingwu Supreme technique and immediately realized that it was difficult to continue using the Lingwu Supreme technique. It was as if it couldn't drag such a powerful force and combine them. That's right. The Lingwu Supreme technique is only at the great magical power level after all. It's a little too difficult to use the power of a great magical power level to draw the power of a Yuan Underworld Realm and a great Mastery Divine Body Realm. Chunzong pondered. This was normal. He had derived the Lingwu Supreme technique previously and had reached the great magical power level. It was enough to control the power of a Dao manipulation realm and a lesser mastery divine body realm. However, now that he had achieved a major breakthrough in his cultivation, the great magical power level Lingwu Supreme technique seemed inadequate. It was like a child dragging a cart. Although he could forcefully drag it, it was a little too difficult. Most importantly, he couldn't maintain it for long. In other words, although I can combine the power of my chi-tempering and body-tempering cultivation to increase my combat strength, I can't do it as smoothly as before. I can't maintain it for long either. Chunzong couldn't help but ponder. There was no doubt that this had a huge impact on him, and he had to resolve it. As for the solution, it was naturally to improve the Lingwu Supreme technique and derive it to a higher level. At the very least, it had to reach the heavenly magical power level before he could control the power of a Yuan Underworld Realm and a great Mastery Divine Body Realm. However, this required time and a foundation. His current foundation and secret techniques seemed to be insufficient. Forget it. I'll deduce it in detail when I return to the Heavenly Intention Palace. Chunzong said to himself. This was the Thousand Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain, so it wasn't suitable for him to stay for long. As for now, it wasn't time yet, so he could still continue to cultivate. What should he cultivate? After thinking about it, the most suitable cultivation method was naturally the Blazing Dragon Breath cultivation technique. The temperature in the Thousand Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was blazing hot, and the fire energy was extremely pure. It was much purer than the fire energy in the Dragon Flame Cave, so it should be more helpful for the cultivation of the Blazing Dragon Breath cultivation technique. Without hesitation, Chunzong circulated the Blazing Dragon Breath cultivation technique, and the purple globe dragon flame appeared. It circled around his body and let out a series of dragon roars. Compared to before, the fire dragon formed by the purple glow dragon flame was much longer and thicker. The power it contained was also much more powerful. With a wave of his sleeve, 1,000 flames essence appeared one after another. There were blue ones and 3 purple ones. Chunzong took out all the remaining 1,000 flames essence. He wanted to use the pure aura of the thousand tribulation divine flame furnace to refine all of them and increase the power of the purple glow dragon flame. Sure enough, the refining speed was beyond his imagination. It increased by more than 10 times. The power of the purple glow dragon flame kept increasing. The fire dragon, which was flickering with black starlight, kept wriggling and its body kept expanding. When all the essence of the myriad flames had been absorbed, the purple domain star dragon flame had finally reached the 9th cycle of the Tao manipulation realm. However, it didn't stop there. Instead, it kept absorbing the surrounding fire energy. It was the aura of the thousand tribulation divine flame furnace. The combination of the blazing dragon breath cultivation technique and the purple glow dragon flame seemed to have smelled the best. It suddenly let out a high-pitched roar and instantly swallowed up the surrounding aura. The aura was so pure and amazing. It could be refined from nothingness and directly absorbed for its own use. The purple glow dragon flame kept growing and gradually approached its limit. The divine flame was a general term. There are also different grades. The current purple glow dragon flame was a low-level divine flame. However, it was gradually approaching the limit of low-level divine flames. If divine flames were classified by combat strength, then the current purple glow dragon flame was at the 9-star level and was approaching the 10-star level. Suddenly, a dragon roar reverberated. The purple glow dragon flame broke through and reached the 10-star level. It didn't stop there and was charging towards the 11-star level. Chunzong felt that the 11-star level should be the upper limit of the purple glow dragon flame's aptitude. Just like cultivators, divine flames also had their own potential. It was difficult to reach the 12-star level after reaching the 11-star level. The next step was to break through and become a mid-level divine flame, which was equivalent to the origin underworld realm. However, when the purple glow dragon flame used the aura of the thousand tribulation divine flame furnace to reach the 11-star level, it didn't stop there. Instead, it continued to absorb the aura in an overbearing manner, causing it to transform. Chapter 22-23. Yu Tianfeng and Qi Mei were in seclusion to break through. Yu Tianfeng's goal was to break through to the Yuan underworld stage, while Qi Mei's goal was to break through the shackles and reach the 12-star level. As for the Jade Void Dragon, it wasn't in seclusion. Instead, it was adapting to its soaring fighting strength and striving to gain complete control of it. Chunzong should have entered the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace by now. He probably doesn't know that there isn't much power left in the furnace. The Jade Void Dragon sneered inwardly as it rested after finishing its cultivation. Chunzong should have agreed to its request earlier. It might have even benefited from it. However, there was no room for regret now, especially since Chunzong didn't know what was going on and was kept in the dark. The Jade Void Dragon felt very comfortable with this thought. Little did the Jade Void Dragon know that the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace was raging and shaking. The brilliance and dominance of the blazing dragon breath refining technique was astonishing. The purple world star dragon flame was also astonishingly domineering because of this technique. The 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace devoured all the fire aura in the furnace. However, this wasn't enough. It wanted to continue devouring. The 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace shook and tried its best to emit more fire aura. Half of it seemed to be forced. Of course, the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace didn't have any intelligence. Shaking, the interior of the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace shook continuously. Its power was accumulated bit by bit and eventually formed. This required many years of accumulation before it was enough for 3 people to use. Now, it was absorbing and accumulating in a way that wasn't beneficial to the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. Instead, it would damage the furnace itself. Chunzong didn't know that there was no stopping it. The blazing dragon breath, refining technique, and the purple world star dragon flame seemed to have broken free from his control and were evolving on their own. The shaking was very weak at first, but it became stronger and stronger. Gradually, it spread to the outside, and the entire furnace shook. What's going on? The old man guarding the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace was no longer expressionless. Instead, he stared at the furnace in shock. This kind of situation had never happened before. Open! The old man immediately shouted. He wanted to open the furnace, but found that his strength wasn't enough. Not good. The old man immediately sent a message to the higher-ups. He was an elder, but he was only in the transcendent realm. He was not strong enough to deal with such an unforeseen event. Soon, a flame filled the sky and condensed into a flaming figure that emitted a terrifying aura. Greetings, luminous flame supremacy. The old man guarding the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace immediately bowed. The newcomer was the first venerable of the myriad tribulation divine flame mountain, Mingyan Venerable. He was the strongest among the venerables. Mingyan Zunja ignored the old man. He stared at the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. His burning eyes contained a solemn expression. Immediately, he slammed his hand forward. A huge fire palm smashed into the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace, causing the furnace to shake and open. Chunzong, who was in the furnace, was also repelled by an irresistible force and rushed out of the furnace. As soon as he came out, Chunzong felt that his surroundings were burning. His whole body felt as though it was being burned. His attention couldn't help but be attracted by Mingyan Venerable. He felt that the flaming figure contained a monstrous power that seemed to be able to burn mountains, boil seas, and incinerate the void. In front of him, Chunzong's soaring combat strength was like an ant. Of course, Yuan Underworld and Dao Venerables were like fireflies compared to the bright moon. It wasn't wrong to call them ants. Mingyan Venerable ignored Chunzong. Instead, he turned into a flame and entered the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. Before long, Mingyan Venerable rushed out of the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace. The furnace is damaged. What happened during this period of time? Mingyan Venerable's gaze landed on the elder's face. Flames shot out from the elder's body. The elder's body trembled as he felt like he was going to be burned to ashes. He was extremely terrified. His cold sweat immediately evaporated as soon as it appeared. In just a short time, Mingyan Venerable had found out the cause of the furnace's damage. He also had some speculations, but he didn't know the details. In the face of the first Venerable's power, the elder didn't dare hide anything and immediately told him what had happened. Of course, he didn't know much. He only said that 4 people had entered the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace, and Chunzong was the last one. It was also because of Chunzong's entry that the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace had suffered damage. Come with me. As soon as Mingyan Zun finished speaking, he immediately swept up Chunzong and turned into a ray of fiery light that flew away. The old man guarding the 10,000 tribulation divine flame furnace had a bitter expression on his face. He knew that he was going to be punished this time around. Mingyan Zunja was not someone who could be easily fooled. His character was just like his title as a Zunja. Mingyan was reasonable. Chunzong couldn't resist and let Mingyan Venerable take him away from the furnace peak. Mingyan Venerable wouldn't harm him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to bear the anger of the Heavenly Intention Palace. Even the Divine Flame Master was no match for the Heavenly Intention Palace. Of course, this was also a way for Chunzong to comfort himself. After all, he was no match for Mingyan Venerable and couldn't escape. He could only comfort himself in this way. Soon, Mingyan Venerable took Chunzong to the Divine Flame Peak. The Divine Flame Peak was the first peak of the Divine Flame Mountain, and Mingyan Venerable was the first Venerable. He had a high position and authority. Mingyan Venerable was swift and decisive. He immediately issued an order to investigate all the information about the 10,000 Flame Grand Meet and the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace. Although this matter was done secretly, it was still possible to find out if the investigation was carried out. After all, he was just trying to deceive Chunzong and didn't think too much about it. Who knew that such an accident would happen and cause the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace to be damaged? If the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace wasn't damaged, this matter wouldn't be investigated. Now the matter was exposed. Subsequently, the first elder, second elder, and third elder of the Divine Flame Peak were summoned. It was their conspiracy that caused the furnace to be damaged. In front of Chunzong, the first elder, second elder, and third elder were all punished. The Jade Illusory Dragon was also summoned. Originally, he wasn't qualified to enter the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace, but he had taken away Chunzong's benefits and indirectly caused the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace to be damaged. Therefore, the Jade Illusory Dragon couldn't escape punishment. The Jade Illusory Dragon's punishment was to guard the Fiery Demon Cave for 100 years. Hearing his punishment, the Jade Illusory Dragon's expression changed drastically. The Fiery Spirit Clan lived in the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Naturally, the ferocious Fiery Demon Clan also lived there. The Fiery Demon Clan had a violent temperament and was extremely aggressive. They wanted to take over the Divine Flame Mountain, but they were stopped in the Fiery Demon Cave. Guarding the Fiery Demon Cave wasn't a good job. In fact, it was quite dangerous. However, this was Ming Yin Venerable's punishment, so he had to accept it. Chunzong only knew that such a despicable thing had happened in the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Fortunately, he had succeeded in breaking through. Although there were some hidden dangers, it was still a good thing. When Chunzong first learned the truth, he was also angry. However, he calmed down now. Otherwise, what else could he do? These people had already been punished, and the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Furnace was damaged. He had also gained a lot. It was enough. Next, it was time to leave the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. This time, when Chunzong left the Heavenly Intention Palace, Wholehearted Holy Man gave Chunzong a one-time use formation disc. It could be used to perform the Great Void Shift and return to the Heavenly Intention Palace directly. Otherwise, it would take a lot of time to rush back with his own speed. However, if he wanted to use the formation disc, he had to leave the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain first. Chunzong did not leave directly. That would be too rude. He had to inform the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain first. Naturally, the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain would not stop Chunzong from leaving. In fact, the investigation ordered by Ming Yin Venerable was no longer a secret. Therefore, the punishment of the three elders and the Jade Illusory Dragon was also no secret. Speaking of which, it was a humiliation for the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. It was fine to deceive outsiders, but there was an unforeseen event. As a result, the deceit was exposed. Wouldn't that be humiliating? Chunzong was the person involved. Therefore, the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain could not wait for Chunzong to leave. However, they were too embarrassed to say it out loud. Now that Chunzong proposed to leave, they were naturally very happy. After flying out of the sea of flames around the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain, Chunzong looked back and could not help but smile. Although the journey to the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain had been a little tortuous, it had been pretty good overall. At the very least, he had successfully broken through and resisted the inner demons. However, Chunzong reckoned that even if he had not been replaced by the Jade Illusory Dragon, he would only have been able to buy some time. In the end, he would not have been able to prevent the inner demons from invading him. The inner demons were something that even the Master of the Heart would find difficult to deal with. His chi cultivation and physique tempering had both broken through to the Yuan underworld and greater mastery, divine, physique tempering realm. This had made his combat strength even stronger. Even if he did not use the supreme Lingwu technique, just his chi cultivation and physique tempering realm combat strength alone would be very powerful. It would be even more powerful if he used the supreme Lingwu technique. In short, He had gained a lot. Now that he was going back, he felt like he was returning from a rewarding journey. Chunzong collected his thoughts and continued flying forward. This place was not suitable for him to use the disc array. He had to go further. However, when Chunzong flew away from the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain, he saw a purplish-red color in front of him. It had turned into a pair of flaming wings that covered tens of thousands of meters of the void. An astonishing, blazing aura spread out and fluctuated continuously. In the center of the pair of purplish-red flaming wings stood a valiant figure. It was Yu Tianfeng. This person was Yu Tianfeng, the number 1 Path Control Realm disciple of the 10,000 Tribulation Divine Flame Mountain. Yu Tianfeng stared at Chunzong from hundreds of thousands of meters away. Her eyes seemed to be burning with a blazing flame, as if she wanted to burn Chunzong to ashes. Chapter 22-24. The void was vast. Yu Qianfeng's pair of flaming wings covered an area of tens of thousands of meters, burning like a raging inferno. Chunzong, I am already at the Yuan Underworld stage. I won't bully you. I will only use 30% of my strength to fight you. Yu Tianfeng shouted as the flames around her surged. Yu Tianfeng had originally wanted to say 30%, but when she recalled how powerful Chunzong had been at the Wanyan Lake, she reckoned that it would be very difficult for her to defeat him with just 10% of her strength. After all, she had just broken through to the Yuan Underworld stage not long ago, and had yet to turn everything into her strength. This time, she had come out of seclusion to intercept Chunzong because he was about to leave, and she was worried that this was a rare opportunity. No need for 30%. Bring out your full strength. Chunzong smiled and released his Yuan Underworld aura. Yu Tianfeng's expression changed drastically when she sensed that Chunzong's cultivation was also at the Yuan Underworld stage. Fear flashed across her eyes before it turned into a blazing battle intent that burned even more vigorously. In that case, I won't hold back. Yu Tianfeng let out a roar and shook her whip. Like a dragon or a snake, flames surged like waves and turned into endless waves of fire that rushed towards Chunzong. The power of this attack was many times stronger than before. If it was the Chunzong from before his breakthrough, he would have to erupt with his true battle prowess in order to deal with it. However, Chunzong used his finger as a sword and casually swung it. Sword light flickered as it suddenly lashed out like a lightning whip. It immediately split apart the scorching wave of fire as if it was striking the sky. Sword light flashed and turned into a crescent moon that shot towards Yu Tianfeng. Yu Tianfeng's expression changed drastically when she saw this attack. The difference in their combat strength was very obvious. Before Chunzong had broken through to the Yuan Underworld stage, his strongest combat strength had been comparable to a 2-star Yuan Underworld stage cultivator without using the Lingwu Supreme technique and other techniques. He might not have reached the peak, but he was still a 2-star Yuan Underworld stage cultivator. After all, the power of the 12th level Taichu sword origin technique, the 2,000-meter sword domain, and the heart sword path was extremely shocking when the 4th sword was used. Without the 4th sword, the power of the 3rd sword had reached the peak of a 1-star Yuan Underworld stage cultivator. Now that his Qi refinement cultivation had broken through to the Yuan Underworld level, the Taichu sword origin had undergone a metamorphosis and become even more powerful. His heart sword path had reached a level of 100% control and was even more powerful. His sword path domain had also improved significantly. All of these things had allowed Chunzong's combat strength. In terms of Qi refinement, even though his cultivation was only at the initial level of the Yuan Underworld realm, Chunzong's combat strength was at least at the 3-star level or even stronger. Fire Phoenix burns the sky. Yu Tianfeng unleashed her full strength and blasted out again. The long whip swept out, rolling up monstrous purple-red flames and turning into a 1,000-meter flaming phoenix. As it burned, it emitted a resounding and sharp cry that resounded through the sky and shook the 9 heavens. Its wings flapped suddenly, and it immediately flew over, burning the void. That extremely shocking blazing power directly surpassed an ordinary one-star combat strength and reached the peak of the one-star level. Yu Qianfeng's talent was amazing, and her potential was also very high. She had a 12-star combat strength when she was in the Dao manipulation realm. After breaking through to the Yuan underworld stage, her combat strength had reached the one-star level even if she hadn't gone into seclusion to improve. It should be known that most Dao manipulation realm cultivators had less than one-star combat strength after breaking through to the Yuan underworld stage. They would need to cultivate for a period of time to have any hope. However, as long as Yu Tianfeng cultivated for a period of time and converted the potential after the breakthrough into strength, her combat strength could reach the 2-star level and even had a chance of reaching the 3-star level. However, it still wasn't enough for Chunzong. Chunzong wanted to return to the Heavenly Palace and cultivate in seclusion to completely convert the potential after the breakthrough into strength and combat strength. He didn't want to delay any longer. He drew his sword. The Extreme Heart Phaseless sword was unsheathed. As his cultivation had broken through, the Extreme Heart Phaseless sword, as a natal divine weapon, its power had increased by more than a few times and was becoming more tyrannical. One sword. Chunzong only swung his sword and didn't use the Heart Refinement sword. It wasn't that he looked down on it, but that there was no need for it at all. Under the absolute difference in combat strength, such a sword was enough. Moreover, Chunzong had already drawn his sword. Sword light flashed, and in an instant, the 1,000-meter phoenix was directly penetrated from the head and shattered inch by inch. The sword light was like a hot knife through butter, sweeping everything in its path as it blasted straight at Yu Tianfeng. Yu Tianfeng's expression changed drastically, and she erupted once again. Flames burned fiercely, and all of them poured into the whip. Suddenly, the whip curled up and swirled up one after another flame vortex after another, as if there was no end to it. Each vortex had a layer of power that constantly weakened the sword light. However, the sword light's power was astonishing. It had the combat strength of a 2-star Yuan Ming cultivator and broke through the layers of vortexes. Although its power was constantly being weakened, it still hit Yu Tianfeng and sent her flying. Her body seemed to have been penetrated, and the sword Qi wreaked havoc. For a moment, Yu Tianfeng lost the ability to continue fighting. Chunzong sheathed his sword, but he didn't pay any attention to Yu Tianfeng. You want to leave after injuring Junior Marshal Sister Yu? A violent roar suddenly sounded, accompanied by a series of roars like waves and surging thunder. From the side, a bright yellow flame covered the sky and earth, enveloping a radius of tens of thousands of meters as it surged over. The bright yellow flame kept advancing as it burned. It gradually protruded from the middle and extended to the left and right, condensing into the shape of a huge eagle. It was extremely fierce and threatening. Its aura was much more tyrannical than Yu Qianfeng's, and its combat strength was even more tyrannical. Under the bright yellow flaming eagle that was several tens of thousands of meters tall, there was a young man dressed in bright yellow with crimson flames all over his body. His eyes were emitting a bright yellow light as he stared at Chunzong. Chunzong felt as if his body was being ignited. He was very strong, and Chunzong felt a little bit of fighting spirit. Senior Brother Huang. Yu Tianfeng frowned slightly when she recognized the newcomer. This person was also a true disciple of the Innumerable Tribulations Divine Flame Mountain, but he was a true disciple of the Yuanming stage. He had broken through to the Yuanming stage earlier than Luo Yunyang, and his combat strength was extraordinary. Most importantly, this person had once expressed his love for Luo Yunyang. Unfortunately, Yu Tianfeng hadn't accepted it because she didn't like it. How could a proud lady like Yu Tianfeng, who was like a flame queen, accept the love of someone who was inferior to her? Although she wasn't as good as the other party now, it was only temporary. Yu Tianfeng had absolute confidence that she would be able to catch up and surpass the other party in no time. Senior Brother Huang, this has nothing to do with you. Yu Tianfeng said again. She didn't want the other party to make a move because of her. She didn't like that feeling, as if she owed someone a favor. Junior sister Yu, I'm not just doing this for you. Huang Mingyuan smiled. I'm also doing this for our innumerable tribulations, divine flame mountain. I wouldn't have made a move if this person was still at the Tao controlling realm. Lest people say that I'm bullying the weak. However, since his cultivation base has broken through to the Yuanming stage and his combat strength is extraordinary, I have to make a move and let him know that our innumerable tribulations divine flame mountain isn't that simple. There's no point in saying more. If you want to fight, let's fight. Shenzong's tone was sharp. He could sense that this person's combat strength had reached the 3-star level, which was just nice for him to temper himself. Of course, Shenzong only needed the combat strength of a qi refinement or body tempering realm cultivator. He would usually use his qi refinement realm to fight his enemies and use his body tempering realm as a concealment technique. Now that he had just made an initial breakthrough and hadn't settled down, a suitable battle would be a good way to temper himself. It would allow him to adapt and master his rapidly advancing strength during the battle. How heroic! I'll fulfill your wish. Take this attack of mine. Huang Mingyuan laughed heartily. He wanted to put on a good show in front of Yu Tianfeng. He immediately let out a long whistle, and the bright yellow, blazing eagle suddenly flapped its wings, sweeping up bright yellow flames that filled the sky. It was like a flaming meteor that bombarded Yu Tianfeng. This was the giant meteor wings, which possessed astonishing power. It was a widespread ability of the innumerable tribulations divine flame mountain. It condensed flames into the shape of a bird and unleashed astonishing power. In just an instant, Huang Mingyuan's 3-star combat strength was fully displayed. Yu Tianfeng's expression changed drastically. The power of this attack was indeed far greater than hers. If it were her, she wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. She would be directly smashed into pieces. However, she didn't know whether Shenzong could withstand it. Although Shenzong's combat strength was greater than hers, it was still unknown whether he was a match for senior brother Huang Mingyuan. Yu Tianfeng felt worried for no reason. It was a rare emotion. The giant meteor wings were blazing with flames. It seemed to have condensed into a substance. In an instant, it exploded with terrifying power and bombarded toward Shenzong. Shenzong's expression didn't change, but there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. He drew his sword. The sword light suddenly flashed and instantly traversed hundreds of meters. Before it dissipated, Shenzong had already struck out with his sword. It was the 3rd sword of the heart refining sword technique. The 3rd sword was only integrated with a 1,000-meter sword principal domain. However, with the support of Shenzong's increasingly powerful Taichu sword spirit and heart sword principal power, its power had increased by many times. It directly possessed 3-star combat strength. It shattered the flames of the giant meteor wings, but the sword light was also greatly weakened until it dissipated. He raised his sword to his eyebrows and struck out again. It was the 4th sword of the heart refining sword technique. It directly integrated a 2,000-meter sword principal domain. When the sword struck out, its power was more than 1 or 2 times stronger than that of the 3rd sword. Kill! The giant meteor wings condensed from flames were instantly shattered. The astonishing sword light directly attacked Huang Mingyuan. Not bad. Huang Mingyuan was secretly shocked, but he didn't show it. Instead, he let out a long roar and suddenly waved his hands, grabbing out 2 extremely dazzling balls of flame. There were streaks of dark yellow lightning jumping around. That was the power of the flames condensed and compressed to a certain extent. Boom! The 2 balls of flames shot out like dancing dragons. Its power was extremely shocking. Chapter 22-25. He held the 5-meter-long flaming blade tightly in his hand. The blade was made of a dark yellow flame that was constantly condensing and precipitating. It was surrounded by black lightning and emitted a terrifying aura of destruction. Flames had many different powers. Destruction and destruction were one of them. Slash! Huang Mingyuan brandished the 5-meter-long blade in his hand. The blade wasn't made of metal, but was condensed from his own origin source flame. The cultivation of the innumerable tribulation divine flame mountain was mainly based on the origin source flame. With the origin source flame in one's body, one's combat strength would increase. Once the origin source flame was damaged, one's body would also be damaged. Once the origin source flame was destroyed, one's body would be destroyed. In Chunzong's opinion, Huang Mingyuan's blade technique was actually quite ordinary. Of course, that was only in comparison. However, every slash of Huang Mingyuan's blade was extremely powerful, as if it could slash through everything. To a certain extent, this made up for the lack of attainment in blade technique. Slash! Slash! With the saber in hand, Huang Mingyuan seemed to not care about the consumption of his own strength. He continuously slashed out with his saber in a frenzy. Every slash unleashed a 100-meter-long saber light that burned endlessly. As they crisscrossed densely, they completely filled the void within a radius of several thousand meters. Moreover, they slashed toward Chunzong from all directions. The power of each slash was at the level of a 3-star warrior. After dozens of slashes, the power was enough to defeat many 3-star warriors. Chunzong was also surprised by such an outburst. Yu Tianfeng's face was even paler. Although she was confident that she could surpass Huang Mingyuan in the future, it would be easy for Huang Mingyuan to kill her now. Would Chunzong be able to withstand it? It had to be said that these dozens of powerful blade lights did indeed put a lot of pressure on Chunzong. Burst! A 3,000-meter-long sword principal domain. That's right. When Chunzong's cultivation base had broken through to the Yuan underworld grade, his sword principal domain had also increased from 2,000 meters to 3,000 meters. Merge! Under this astonishing pressure, Chunzong relied on his superb comprehension and astonishing foundation to compress and merge the 3,000-meter-long sword principal domain into Sword 4. Of course, it was a little rough. As the sword light fluctuated, it was somewhat unstable. After defeating a few saber lights, it dissipated on its own. However, Chunzong didn't care. He continued to swing his second and third sword, and the sword light shot out like an aurora. Under the pressure, the sword principal domain became more condensed and compressed. Every sword strike was more precise, and its power was also more tyrannical. Unknowingly, Huang Mingyuan had become Chunzong's whetstone. Chunzong had basically mastered Sword 4 when dozens of terrifying blade lights were shattered. The power of Sword 4, which was integrated into the 3,000-meter Sword Dao territory, was much stronger than the previous 2,000-meter Sword Dao territory. That was enough. Heart Flame. In an instant, the 8-layered heart flame burned and turned into 8-layered flames that spread around Chunzong. The secret technique of the heart flame was effective regardless of one's cultivation level. Moreover, it would not be weakened in the slightest. In an instant, Chunzong's strength and speed were increased by 80%. Although his combat strength was not directly increased by 80%, it had increased by quite a bit. Sword 4. When the sword struck out, the sword light was extremely dazzling and pierced through everything. Huang Mingyuan's eyelids twitched unconsciously, and an extremely strong sense of crisis broke out in an instant. The 5-meter-long saber suddenly shook, rolling up an extremely violent saber light and bombarding out like a group of flaming meteorites. Piercing. Sword 4 was extremely powerful and unparalleled in its sharpness. It directly pierced through Huang Mingyuan's flaming meteor-like saber light. After piercing through the flaming meteor blade light like a hot knife through butter, it pierced through Huang Mingyuan's body. The terrifying sword chi immediately erupted and wreaked havoc in his body, causing Huang Mingyuan to lose a good portion of his combat strength. "You are no match for me." Chunzong sheathed his sword. Huang Mingyuan wasn't an enemy after all. Furthermore, he was a true disciple of the innumerable tribulations' divine flame mountain. There was no need to kill him. Huang Mingyuan was naturally embarrassed and angry when he heard Qinzong's words. He had never imagined that a true disciple of the Heavenly Palace would be so powerful. Qinzong had just broken through to the Yuan underworld stage, but the power of his sword had already reached the 4-star level. Although Qinzong had used the Heavenly Palace's mystic technique to enhance the heart flame, it also meant that his combat strength had reached the peak of the 3-star level without the enhancement of the heart flame mystic technique. Qinzong had only just broken through, yet he already had such combat strength. If he settled down for a period of time and completely converted his potential into combat strength, it wouldn't be impossible for his combat strength to reach the 4-star level. Where did this monster come from? He had never heard of anyone who could reach the 3-star level as soon as they broke through to the Yuan underworld stage. Even those monstrous geniuses with 12-star combat strength at the Tao controlling realm could only reach the 2-star level of the Yuan underworld stage after breaking through to the Yuan underworld stage. The 3-star level was unheard of. Huang Mingyuan was shocked and angry, but he didn't dare make a move. Qinzong sheathed his sword and ignored Yu Tianfeng and Huang Mingyuan. He rode a beam of sword light and flew away rapidly. It was time to return to the Heavenly Palace. Qinzong, I will look for you again. Yu Tianfeng's voice was filled with determination as it sounded from behind him. However, Qinzong ignored it. Look for me? So what? Do you think you can defeat me if you look for me again? That's impossible. The gap between their combat strength was so big now, let alone in the future. Ever since he had embarked on the path of cultivation, anyone who had been surpassed by him would never be able to catch up to him again. This had long formed an incomparably firm belief in Qinzong's heart. No, that was too absolute. If he had to say that he was half, then the Heavenly Palace could be considered. After he left, Qinzong took out the array disk of the Great Void Shift Array. He poured his power into it and immediately activated it. Layers of light circulated and overlapped, crisscrossing and instantly wrapping around Qinzong's body. It was as if countless threads were intertwining and weaving into a giant cocoon. In the next moment, all the light contracted inwards, compressing Qinzong's body to the smallest point. He then escaped into the depths of the void and disappeared. That point was escaping from a southern void at an astonishing speed, heading towards the central void. In just a short time, the Great Void Shift Array of the Heavenly Palace was activated. It buzzed and rays of light shone, intertwining and exuding endless mysteries. A figure appeared within it. At the same time, an extremely powerful divine thought swept across and filled the entire grand universal space teleportation formation. It was the elder who guarded the Great Void Shift Array. He was a peak transcendent realm cultivator. His purpose was to prevent enemies from sneaking into the Heavenly Palace through the Great Void Shift Array, although the possibility of that was very low. After sensing that it was Qinzong, the extremely tyrannical divine sense was retracted. Qinzong's figure flashed and left the Great Void Shift Array, flying towards the Heavenly Palace. You're back. The Heavenly Master stared at Qinzong and nodded slightly. Immediately, his eyes seemed to flicker with light. You've made a breakthrough. Yes, Master, I've made a breakthrough, Qinzong replied. However, there are some unforeseen circumstances. Oh, what unforeseen circumstances? The Heavenly Master could not help but frown, his tone quickening. Qinzong summarized what happened at the Myriad Tribulations Divine Flame Mountain in the shortest possible time. Naturally, the changes in the Heart Demon was the main point. The Heavenly Master's figure flashed, and he immediately began to check. He frowned, but there was nothing he could do. He had to find the Master of Will again. Then, Qinzong was summoned. Facing the Master of Will for the second time, Qinzong's heart was still unable to remain calm. The Master of Will was as calm as ever. After examining Qinzong, he frowned and shook his head as if he was also helpless. This heart demon is strange. It's not comparable to ordinary heart demons. It has already merged with your spiritual soul. If you want to remove it, you will also lose a part of your spiritual soul forever, and you will not be able to recover it, the Master will said slowly. The consequences were very serious. If a part of the spiritual soul could be recovered, it was worth a try. However, if it could not be recovered, the consequences would be very serious. You don't have to worry too much. The Master of Will said to Chunzong, "You must know that the heart demon originates from one's own body. It is the collection of one's own desires. It comes from the same source as one's own body. What you need to do is to face the heart demon directly and not reject it. If you can understand it one day, the heart demon will not be a burden to you, but something you can rely on to soar." Chunzong could understand the Master of Will's words, but he did not understand the meaning behind them. However, there were some mysteries that could only be understood and not explained in words. As for what it was, he still needed to understand and experience it himself. After thanking the Master of Will, Chunzong left with his master. The Heart Holy Man, don't feel too much pressure. The Heart Holy Man said to Chunzong, to others, the heart demon is a drawback. However, to us of the Will Heavenly Palace, it is both a drawback and an opportunity. As for what it is, it depends on you. I hope that the heart demon can become your opportunity, the Heart Holy Man said in a serious tone. Heart demon. Others could not help in controlling and subduing the heart demon. Everything depended on one's own strength. In the end, there are only three outcomes. First, one could obtain the opportunity and advance by leaps and bounds. Second, one could damage one's foundation and expel the heart demon. Third, one could be possessed by the heart demon and fall into the demonic path. Most people were the second. If it was the first, they would advance by leaps and bounds. The third would also advance by leaps and bounds, but fall into the demonic path and become irreconcilable. The Heart Holy Man hoped that Chunzong would be the first. After all, with such outstanding talent, it would be too scary if he was the third. However, this was something that he could not interfere with. He could only guide him. After bidding farewell to his master, Chunzong returned to his palace and began to cultivate in seclusion. When one's cultivation broke through a big realm, one's potential would be in a state of surging. It was the best time to convert it into one's own strength. If one missed this period of time, one's potential would return to a state of calmness. If one wanted to convert it into one's strength, the difficulty would increase by more than 10 times. Chunzong would not miss such a good opportunity. Chapter 22-26. Seclusion was a form of quiet cultivation and also a form of refinement. Chunzong could feel an indescribable power surging endlessly within his body. It was like a tide, like the wind, like floating clouds. Chunzong knew that this was potential. It was the potential that had become active due to the breakthrough of a major realm. This potential could be transformed into one's strength in any aspect, be it chi refinement, body tempering, martial techniques, mystic abilities, and so on. The first step of seclusion was to comprehend and sort out the Great Path. The Heart's Path and the Great Path of the world went hand in hand. The Great Path was mysterious and profound, as if it was endless. The mystery of the Tao controlling realm could be seen from the name of the realm. Tao controlling. Controlling the Great Path meant using the power of the Great Path for one's own use. It was the initial mastery and application of the Great Path. The ninth revolution meant mastering 90% of the power of the Great Path. Mastering 100% of the power of the Great Path at the Yuan underworld realm was also a transformation. It was the beginning of unearthing the deeper mysteries of the Great Path. In short, apart from improving one's own cultivation base, the most important aspect of cultivation at the Spirit Ascension realm was to continuously enhance one's understanding and mastery of the Great Path. Ultimately, one would reach the pinnacle and truly master the Great Path. At that time, one would become a ruler of the Great Path. As for now, one was walking on the path of completely mastering the Great Path. The mysteries of the Great Path were slowly unearthed by Chunzong and grasped bit by bit. As Chunzong comprehended the Great Path of the Great Path, a buzzing sound gradually rang out in the secret room. It sounded like the vibrations of a sword. An illusory sword light appeared faintly around Chun Zong's body. This was the level of the Great Path of the Yuan underworld realm. The more condensed the power of the Great Path was, the deeper one's understanding of the Great Path and the stronger the power of the Great Path was. Of course, one wouldn't deliberately manifest the power of the Great Path during a battle, because it wouldn't have any effect on one's combat strength. It was just a judgment of the level. After the illusory sword light appeared, a vast illusory image of mountains, rivers, forests, and heaven and earth appeared. It was just like the outline of a world. The heart sword path, the great path of the world. Gradually, the illusory sword light and the illusory world began to solidify bit by bit. However, the solidification speed was very, very slow. Not long after, the heart sword path and great Tao of world were withdrawn. Shenzong also opened his eyes. Earlier, he had been comprehending the heart sword Tao and the world Tao at the same time. Now, Shenzong felt that his comprehension of the heart sword Tao and the world Tao had reached the limit of his current level. It was difficult to improve any further. Then the second step should be his sword technique. The 3,000-meter long sword principle domain was about to be completely integrated into the strongest sword 4. In addition, the 10,000 swords return to origin sword technique should also be innovated. With his potential surging, Chun Zong's comprehension was many times more effective than usual. Moreover, with the support of the titled Divine Steel's unparalleled Divine Sword's titled power, his efficiency was even higher. The Yuan underworld realm was even higher. So Chun Zong also reorganized the heart refining sword technique, and the 10,000 swords returned to origin sword technique. Once again, he optimized and perfected them and improved them further. Originally, Sword 1 of the heart refining sword technique had been integrated into a 100-meter long sword principle domain. Now, it had become a 500-meter long sword principle domain. Sword 2 had been integrated into a 1,000-meter long sword principle domain. As for Sword 3, it had originally been integrated into a 100-meter long sword principle domain. Now, it had been upgraded to a 2,000-meter long sword principle domain. As for Sword 4, after optimization, it could be integrated into a 5,000-meter long sword principle domain. The 3,000-meter long sword principle domain was nothing. Naturally, the 10,000 swords returned to origin sword technique had also been optimized and perfected. Furthermore, he had also successfully created the fourth move. At the same time, a mysterious warning that seemed to originate from the sword principle origin in the void flashed through his mind. The 10,000 swords return to origin sword technique is a sword technique of the world Tao. It takes the path of a sword to create a world. Such a name is not suitable. Chun Zong couldn't help but ponder. The 10,000 swords return to origin. That was a kind of mystery. Now, with a higher realm, Chun Zong felt that it was not appropriate to use the 10,000 swords return to origin sword technique to name the sword technique of the world Tao. As a naming party, he had to change it. Thinking quickly, one name after another flashed through Chun Zong's mind. Finally, he decided. The sword technique of the heart sword principle will be called the heart refining sword technique. As for the sword technique of the world Tao, it will be called the great world sword technique. It's simple and direct. Chun Zong said to himself with a smile. He was quite satisfied with his decision. Changing the name was not something that could be done casually. For any kind of supernatural power, the more profound it was, the more important its name would be. It had to be compatible with its mystery. Only then would it be smoother, and it would also receive the recognition of the corresponding origin of the great path in the void. It would be of help to one's comprehension. It would be smoother. On the contrary, there would be a lot of resistance. For example, if a sword technique had to be named a saber technique, would it be recognized by the origin of the sword principle in the void? Or was it recognized by the origin of the saber principle? This was not appropriate. It would affect the follow-up. Especially, the more profound it was, the more obvious the impact would be. Of course, if it was not profound enough, the impact would be negligible. It was equivalent to nothing. Zong created the sword technique in order to exert the mystery and power of the heart sword principle and the great Tao of the world. It would continue to be perfected and improved. Therefore, he had to face it seriously. Sure enough, when Zong changed the 10,000 swords returned to origin sword technique to the great world sword technique, he felt a sense of clarity. In this case, the first move should also be renamed. Zong pondered. His eyes were shining. The beginning of the world. Let's call it the beginning of the Yuan. The beginning of the Yuan, the picturesque mountains and rivers, the forest of thousands of trees. Next, it's time to comprehend the field domain of sword principle, Zong said secretly. The 3,000-meter field domain of sword principle was definitely not his current limit. It could be further improved. As for how far it could be improved, Zong did not know. He would do his best. For 1,000 meters, the field domain of sword principle increased from 3,000 meters to 4,000 meters. 4,000 meters was his current limit. It would be very difficult to increase it further unless he made another breakthrough. Then, Zong began to deduce the Taichu sword energy technique. As a result, the Taichu sword energy technique was deduced to the 13th level under Zong's efforts. The Taichu sword energy in his body became more vigorous and pure. Its power also increased. It was different in terms of body refinement. Because the great Tao of the world directly merged with the divine body of the world was forged. Therefore, there was no need for any special technique. As long as the great Tao of the world was improved, the divine body of the world would also be strengthened. Naturally, his body refinement cultivation would also increase. Next, he naturally had to comprehend the supreme Lingwu technique and further deduce it to improve it. Zong's consciousness entered the mind elephant pavilion once more and read the various secret arts. He used the One Heart Sutra to comprehend them. As long as he could comprehend the surface and grasp a trace of their profundities, he would be able to increase his accumulation of secret arts. In particular, secret techniques that were useful for his qi refinement and body refinement were more suitable. The deduction of the supreme Lingwu technique was more difficult and time-consuming than other aspects. 5 years. Zong spent a total of 5 years. He constantly comprehended secret techniques and accumulated a foundation before deducing the supreme Lingwu technique. He simulated it time and time again, modified it time and time again, perfected it time and time again. Including the breakthroughs in other aspects that he had comprehended before, Zong spent 10 years cultivating in seclusion this time. 10 years did not seem short, but the improvement it brought to Zong was extremely shocking. Whether it was his qi refinement battle prowess or body refinement battle prowess, Zong had raised them all to their current limits. They were at least at the 4-star level. Zong was completely confident about this. When the supreme Lingwu technique was deduced to the level of divine ability, he could easily control the power of qi refinement and body refinement. He could fuse them into a new power, further increasing his battle prowess. Supreme Lingwu technique. With a low cry, the two powerful powers in his body circulated and immediately fused into one. His power increased explosively. Unfortunately, cultivation is the foundation. It does not have as great an impact on battle prowess as the Great Path. If I can fuse the power of the two great paths, then I'll really advance by leaps and bounds. It had to be said that Zong was a little greedy. In the imminent deity realm, the Great Path was the foundation and the core. It was the most important component of battle prowess. It could be said that the Great Path occupied half of the entire battle prowess system. Therefore, although the fusion of the two cultivation powers would become even more powerful, it was only equivalent to a secret technique. If the two powers of the Great Path were fused together, it would be truly astonishing. It was far from what the fusion of cultivation powers could compare to. The gap between the two was definitely several times, or even higher. However, it was possible to fuse the power of cultivation powers, but to fuse the power of different great paths was wishful thinking. Before breaking through to the imminent deity realm, cultivators had to first sort out their great paths and decide which to keep and which to give up. They had to even remove the waste from the different great paths and fuse them into a new great path. With this, they could break through and comprehend the great path and master the power of the great path. Mastering the power of the great path was fixed and could not be changed. After all, every imminent deity realm cultivator could only master one power of the great path, unless they were like Chunzong, who had broken through both chi refining and body refining simultaneously. Collecting his thoughts, Chunzong also spread out the power of the fusion. Although he dared to think about fusing the power of the great path, it was just a thought. Fine. Now I'll go challenge the Star Battle Pagoda and see what level my battle prowess has reached, Chunzong said to himself. He immediately set off, leaving the palace and heading for the Star Battle Pagoda. If he wanted to know his battle prowess, the Star Battle Pagoda was undoubtedly the best place to go. This was because he could fight with all his might, regardless of life or death. Only then could he test his true battle prowess. Arriving in front of the Star Battle Pagoda, Chunzong stood still and gazed at it. The Star Battle Pagoda was still towering as if there was no end to it, piercing into the clouds. Last time, I reached the 14th floor. How many floors can I reach this time? Chunzong muttered to himself. Then, his figure flashed and entered the Star Battle Pagoda. Without hesitation, Chunzong chose to go to the 14th floor. This was because the opponents on the lower floors were nothing to him, and he could easily defeat and kill them. On the 14th floor, there was a 2-star barbarian warrior. When Chunzong appeared, he let out a roar and unleashed a terrifying power and killing intent. Without any hesitation, he attacked Chunzong mercilessly. His attack tore through the air and destroyed the mountains. Chapter 22-27. This kid is going to challenge the Star Battle Pagoda again. The wholehearted holy man smiled from within the wholehearted palace. At the same time, the wholehearted holy man wasn't the only one paying attention to Chunzong. After all, Chunzong's title was Unparalleled Godly Sword, which was ranked first on the title Divine Steel. Even a master of will couldn't compare to him. On the 15th floor of the Star Battle Pagoda, there was a 3-star barbarian demon warrior. The sword light suddenly flashed. It was extremely sharp, like a divine lightning that could tear the heavens and earth apart. A terrifying sword pressure condensed within the sword and rushed forward, causing the barbarian demon warrior to unconsciously pause. In the next moment, it directly pierced through. Kill! With a flash, Chunzong entered the 16th floor. His opponent was the 4-star barbarian demon warrior. Stronger. Before this, Chunzong wasn't a match for it. Even if he used all his techniques, he still wouldn't be a match for it. But now, Chunzong only planned to use the battle strength of the chi refinement stage. Sword rise. Sword fall. The 4-star barbarian demon warrior also roared. Its momentum shook the heavens. Its huge fist was condensed with extremely terrifying totem power, and it blasted out like a burning flame. This punch was extremely powerful and ferocious. It vaguely resembled a huge and ferocious bear opening its bloody mouth and biting crazily. The sword light flashed and pierced through the ferocious bear's mouth. It instantly dissipated, and the bear's head also collapsed. This attack was evenly matched. Chunzong's lips curled into a smile. His figure flashed, and he was as swift as the wind. Once again, he struck out with his sword. Heart-refining sword technique. Sword 3. After Chunzong's refinement and optimization, the power of this sword was no longer inferior to Sword 4. Its power had increased greatly. Coupled with the more powerful heart sword principle and the 13th level of the Taichu sword origin technique, this sword attack completely had the combat strength of a 4-star level. Fight. Fierce battle. It wasn't easy to determine life and death in a short period of time, especially when both of them weren't at the peak of the 4-star level. Sword 4. After fusing with the 3,000-meter sword principle domain, the sword's power was even more tyrannical. It was surprisingly close to the peak of the 4-star level. It directly repelled the barbarian demon warrior and injured him, but it was still difficult to kill him. After the fierce battle, Chunzong also confirmed that his regular Qi refinement stage combat power was at the level of a 4-star warrior. Then let's explode. Heart fire. Burn. In an instant, layer after layer of flames burned around Chunzong's body and spread out. In an instant, there were 8 layers of flames. Then, the 9th layer did not stop, and the 10th layer of flames also spread and burned. Burn, burn. 100% power and speed and powers. That's right, after 10 years of seclusion, Chunzong had successfully forged the 2 heart palaces to great success. Burn, 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 burn heart 2. Of burn, 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 burn heart mind. Even if it didn't increase his combat strength by 100%, it still increased his combat strength by quite a bit. Genesis, 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 origin, body, body, body. Sword, sword, sword. S-mind, sword, sword, sword. Refining, S-hearts' sword, 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 sword. It was an extreme strike. Its power had broken through the limits and shackles, reaching a higher level. This sword attack seemed to be indestructible, and it was clearly at the level of a 5-star battle warrior. Even if it was only at the initial stage of the 5-star level, it was still difficult for a 4-star level to resist. The barbarian demon warrior immediately ignited all of its totemic power at the critical moment and unleashed a terrifying strike. It immediately reached the peak of the 4-star level, but it was useless. Kill. Now, my normal battle strength is at the 4-star level. If I use Heart Fire and Genesis, Genesis, Origin Body, my battle strength will reach the initial stage of the 5-star level. If I use the Supreme Ling Wu technique, my battle strength won't surpass the 5-star level. At most, it'll reach the peak of the 5-star level. Chunzong thought to himself. After all, the fusion of cultivation power was more limited. It wasn't like when he was below the Spirit Ascension stage, where cultivation power could be compared to Tao intent. Now, Tao intent was the most important. Furthermore, his current cultivation base had just broken through to the Yuan Underworld stage. It was only at the initial stage of the Yuan Underworld stage, so his Heart Sword path was also limited by his cultivation base. Thinking back, having a 5-star battle strength at the initial stage of the Yuan Underworld stage was still very shocking. Level 16. Chunzong didn't try again. If he tried again, he would only reach level 17. He might be able to pass, but he would have to use all his means. There was no need. It was better to hold back a little. 4-star battle strength. He only broke through to the Yuan Underworld stage, yet he already has a 4-star battle strength. What terrifying talent. This is unprecedented. For a moment, all the powerhouses watching the Star Battle Pagoda were shocked. The single-hearted holy man was filled with pride. He didn't have much hope when he casually left behind an opportunity back then. After all, he didn't just leave behind one opportunity, he left behind many opportunities. However, only 2 people were able to become his disciples in the end. His 5th disciple, Chunzong, was even more outstanding than he had expected. He wasn't inferior to his first disciple in the slightest. In fact, he was much better. He was really looking forward to his 5th disciple's future achievements. However, he still had to overcome the heart demon tribulation. As a master, while he was proud of his disciple, he naturally had to take action to fight for more benefits for his disciple. Thus, the wholehearted Tao Venerate issued a command. Most of the Tao Venerates from the 5 palaces had gathered in the Mind Palace. There was even a ruler present. Everyone already knows the ability of my 5th disciple, Chunzong. Then, it's time to confer him the position of Path Disciple. The wholehearted Tao Venerate didn't beat around the bush. Of course, the other Tao Venerates also knew what the wholehearted Tao Venerate's objective was. Path Disciple. A Path Disciple was above a true disciple. A Path Disciple's status was comparable to an elder's and was only slightly inferior to a Tao Venerate. Of course, this was based on status and not strength. Of course, compared to a true disciple, a Path Disciple was extremely rare. First, they had to be at the Yuan underworld realm. Second, they had to be extremely talented. This was because a path disciple represented the honor of a sacred ground more than a true disciple. If one were to talk about personal disciples, they could be categorized into ordinary personal disciples and elite personal disciples. Ordinary personal disciples were directly affiliated with the Heavenly Will Palace, and they weren't qualified to join the 5 palaces. As such, they weren't able to learn the unique cultivation techniques of the 5 palaces. Elite true disciples belonged to the 5 palaces and were even more outstanding. Thus, a path disciple belonged to the entire Mind Palace. It was the highest honor. Currently, there were only 2 path disciples in the Mind Palace. Chunzong's talent is outstanding. I approve the position of path disciple, said a Dao Venerate. Seconded, Unparalleled Divine Sword's title is amazing. He's qualified to be a path disciple. Chunzong's talent was obvious to all. Not long ago, he had even displayed a shocking battle prowess. In terms of talent, Chunzong was fully qualified to be a path disciple. However, talent was a prerequisite for being a path disciple. It wasn't the only prerequisite. A path disciple carried the honor of the entire sect and shared the sect's honor and disgrace. In that case, I declare Chunzong, the 5th true disciple of the Mind Palace, as a path disciple in preparation. He can only be a path disciple after passing the path disciple test. The Mind Venerate revealed a smile. A path disciple was reasonable. Every path disciple had gone through the same process. The test for a path disciple was much stricter than that of a true disciple. It wasn't that easy. If one couldn't pass the test, it didn't matter how talented they were. I declare Chunzong, the 5th true disciple of the Mind Palace, as a path disciple in preparation. Everyone in the Mind Palace was shocked. A path disciple. That was the preliminaries for a path disciple. A path disciple's status in the Mind Palace was even higher than that of many Divinity Realm elders. It was second only to the Venerate. A path disciple. When Chunzong heard about it, he was stunned. He never thought that he would be a path disciple in preparation. This status was completely above that of the elite true disciples. Immediately, Chunzong revealed a smile. In the Mind Palace, Chunzong, from now on, you'll be a preparatory Taoist. Every move you make will represent the glory of the Heavenly Will Palace. The wholehearted holy man's expression was solemn, and his tone was unprecedentedly solemn. Yes, Master. Chunzong also responded with a solemn expression. A path disciple in preparation to become a true path disciple has to go through many tests. The Mind Venerate looked at him with satisfaction. After the discussion between the Mind Palace Venerate and the Venerate, your first test is to guard the cave of the heart demons for 10 years. Only after completing the first test can you proceed to the second test. When do you plan to start the test? The Mind Venerate asked. Chunzong pondered for a while. His original plan was to leave the Mind Palace after he finished his closed-door training and send the body of Yukong Venerable back to fulfill his last wish. It was also Chunzong's vow, but now it seemed that he had to make some adjustments. Fortunately, the vow left by Yukong Venerable was within 1,000 years. So far, only a few decades had passed, not even 100 years. It was still far from 1,000 years. After all, 1,000 years referred to 1,000 void years. Then, the matter of fulfilling Yukong Venerable's last wish would be pushed back again. First, he had to complete the first test of the Path Disciple. Chunzong was still very curious about the Cave of the Heart Demons. The Cave of the Heart Demons is the place where the white world and the black world overlap. It is also the place where the heart demons can easily rush out of the black world. The Mind Venerate's tone was solemn. As a Tao Venerate, and an extremely powerful one at that, he was also very wary of the black world. The Cave of the Heart Demons is guarded on a rotational basis. Other than you, there are already other disciples guarding it. The highest ranked one is Li Xian Tao Venerate. The Mind Venerate explained to Chunzong in detail, explaining everything about the Cave of the Heart Demons. After all, guarding the Cave of the Heart Demons was not an easy task. Once it broke out, it would be very dangerous. He did not want his disciple, who had a bright future, to have anything bad happen to him in the cave of the heart demons. Shenzong listened attentively. After all, the mind venerate had guarded the cave of the heart demons before and was very experienced. After a round of explanation, Shenzong had a detailed and in-depth understanding of the cave of the heart demons. Then, my disciple, when do you plan to start the test? The mind venerate asked. Chapter 22-28. Shenzong entered the ground and kept going down. It was dark all around, as if it was a void. There was no sound or light, which was enough to make some people with weaker willpower panic. However, such an environment was nothing to Shenzong. He didn't feel any pressure at all. Shenzong could even clearly remember how many steps he had taken and how many meters he had gone down before reaching his destination. Unparalleled divine, soared Shenzong. Welcome. However, guarding the mental demon cave isn't a good job. Li Xian Dao Master was a man who did not like to smile. He usually had a cold look on his face, but now he squeezed out a smile. It was a little forced, as if he rarely smiled and had almost forgotten what it was like to smile. Greetings, Dao Venerate. Shenzong bowed first. No matter what, a Dao Venerate was a Dao Venerate. His status was extremely high and his strength was tyrannical. Respect was necessary. There are a total of 18 levels in the mental demon cave. You are at the Yuan underworld realm, so you should be guarding the 7th to the 12th level. Now that the term of the 8th level's guardian has expired, you can go and be the guardian of the 8th level. Venerate Li Xian smiled. All right. Shenzong nodded. Mental demons that could rush out of the mental demon realm and enter the mental demon cave all had extraordinary abilities and had undergone some changes. They had a certain physical body and were divided into ordinary mental demons, elite mental demons, mental demon generals, mental demon kings, and above them was the mental demon ruler. Ordinary mental demons corresponded to the Tao manipulation realm. Elite mental demons corresponded to the Yuan underworld realm. Mental demon generals corresponded to the divine power realm. Mental demon kings corresponded to the Tao venerate realm. Mental demon rulers corresponded to the sovereign realm. Of the 18 levels of the heart demon grotto, the 1st to 6th levels were usually inhabited by ordinary heart demons. The 7th to 12th levels were inhabited by elite heart demons, and the 13th to 18th levels were mainly inhabited by heart demon generals. Of course, the stronger the mental demon, the fewer there were. Just because mental demon kings rarely appeared didn't mean they didn't exist. Therefore, a Tao venerate guardian was very necessary. A Tao venerate guardian of the mental demon cave would usually be there for 10,000 years. A divine power realm elder would be there for 1,000 years. Yuan underworld realm true disciples would be there for 100 years, and Tao manipulation realm true disciples would be there for 10 years. A rotation system was adopted. Shenzong's current identity was a preparatory path chosen. He was here to carry out the assessment mission and was not included in the duties of a guard. Of course, even if it was Shenzong's turn to guard, there would still be a long time. In fact, if Shenzong could become a true Taoist, it would be entirely up to him whether he wanted a guard or not. The Heart Devil Cave had a very clear division. Those at the Town Master level were the chief guards. The other levels of the Demonic Heart Grotto each had a guardian elder. They could be at the Tao Manipulation Realm, the Origin Underworld Realm, or the Divine Ability Realm. After the allocation, Shenzong headed to the 8th level of the Cave of the Inner Demons to report. It was not really a report. After all, every level of the Cave of the Inner Demons had a guardian chief, and Shenzong was the guardian chief of the 8th level. In terms of status, he was second only to Li Xian Holy Man. In the 8th level of the Devil's Heart Cave, there were 5 people gathered together. These 5 people were all true disciples of the Will Heavenly Palace. Each of them had an Origin Underworld Realm cultivation base and powerful combat strength. Junior brothers, my guard period is up. It's time to leave. When your guard period is up, remember to look for me. I'll treat you to good wine. Luo Hao, who had a scar at the corner of his eye, smiled at the other 4. Don't worry, Senior brother Luo. When the time comes, we won't go home until we're drunk. Yi Ming laughed, and the other three responded with a smile. Then it's settled. Remember to look for me. Luo Hao smiled, and then said seriously, in addition, I originally wanted to recommend Yi Ming to take over as the guardian chief of the 8th level, but it seems that he didn't agree. Perhaps someone is going to take over. No matter what, you have to cooperate with a new guardian chief. The Heart Devil Cave's guards were relatively slow to understand the outside world. Therefore, they did not know that Chunzong had already arrived. Among the four, Yi Ming's expression darkened slightly before he smiled. Don't worry, senior brother Luo. We will cooperate well. That's good. I'll take my leave first. See you outside. Luo Hao waved with a smile and turned to leave. After Luo Hao left, the smile on Yi Ming's face disappeared and was replaced by a cold expression. Originally, after Luo Hao left, he had hopes of becoming the guardian chief. Naturally, he would be able to obtain more merit points. Although guarding the Heart Devil Cave was a rotational duty and was compulsory for all members of the Will Heavenly Palace, one could obtain merit points during the period of guarding. Naturally, merit points had many benefits, and no one would complain about having more. The merit points obtained by being the guardian chief would naturally be more than an ordinary guardian. It was at least double the difference. However, there seemed to be no hope for him now. Thinking of this, Yi Ming couldn't feel happy. Who will be the new guardian chief? The other three were also guessing. Before long, Chunzong arrived. Yi Ming, Hong Mei, Yang Jingya Lin Xiao. Chunzong's gaze swept over them. Before coming, Li Xian Dao Master naturally wouldn't let Chunzong be confused. Therefore, he not only knew the names of the four members he would be leading, but also their cultivation and combat strength. I'm a new guardian chief. My name is Chunzong. I'm very happy to meet the four senior brothers and senior sisters. I hope that we will cooperate well in the next 10 years and guard the 8th level of the Heart Devil Cave well. The four of them had entered the sect earlier than Chunzong, so it was reasonable for Chunzong to address them as senior brothers and senior sisters. Hearing Chunzong's words, the four of them had similar reactions but also different reactions. 10 years. They were all slightly stunned. Shouldn't it be 100 years? The cultivation aura emanating from the other party was clearly at the origin demon realm and not the Dao manipulation realm. Moreover, the requirement to guard the 7th to 12th levels of the Heart Devil Cave was to be at the origin demon realm. Dao manipulation realm cultivators didn't have that ability. In addition, they also noticed the two words Chunzong, or rather, this name. The Heart Devil Cave's understanding of the outside world was relatively slow, but it wasn't completely clueless. Therefore, they still knew the name Chunzong. However, even though they knew, they couldn't keep up with the current information. It was only before Chunzong had broken through to the origin demon realm. So it's junior brother Chunzong. Congratulations on breaking through to the origin demon realm. Yi Ming was all smiles. Although he was unwilling, he didn't show it. The other three originally didn't have any hope of becoming the guardian chief, so it wasn't strange for them to have a new guardian chief. Therefore, they didn't have any psychological resistance. As such, Chunzong settled down and guarded this place for 10 years. 10 years would pass very easily. Guardian Chief, the elite inner demons of the 8th level of the Heart Devil Cave, are all very strong. Without sufficient combat strength, it will be difficult to resist. When Yi Ming spoke again, the other three's hearts skipped a beat. They immediately knew that Yi Ming was going to make things difficult. After all, he was eyeing the position of Guardian Chief. What do you want to say? Chunzong was neither fast nor slow as he stared at Yi Ming calmly. His calm gaze made Yi Ming's heart tremble uncontrollably. He vaguely had a bad feeling, but he still continued to speak. According to my speculation, the Guardian Chief should have broken through to the origin demon realm not long ago. Yi Ming seemed to have regained his confidence as he said again, I wonder how the Guardian Chief's combat strength is now. Do you want to give it a try? Chunzong smiled faintly. Before coming, Chunzong had expected that there might be a situation where the members weren't convinced. Sure enough, it was within his expectations. If the Guardian Chief is itching for a fight, Yi Ming will naturally accompany you. Yi Ming's words were very sharp. When he said this, people who didn't know better would think that Zong wanted to challenge him and not the other way around. However, such a small trick was useless against Zong. One sword. Zong stared at Yi Ming as the smile on his face faded. A glint flashed his eyes as he softly uttered two words. His words were simple and direct, but they were suffused with an indescribable sharpness that seemed to be able to pierce through everything and tear everything apart. Yi Ming's expression changed immediately. If you can block my sword, the position of the Guardian Chief will be yours, Zong said again. Zong said again. The sharpness contained in his words was even more intense and shocking, causing the other three to be extremely shocked. They unconsciously took a step back, as if they were being torn apart. One slash. Yi Ming was shocked and furious. He actually dared to dream of defeating him with one sword. Was he looking down on him? Was he humiliating him? How could a person who had just broken through to the origin demon realm not long ago defeat him with one sword, no matter how talented he was? No, not to mention defeating him with one sword. It was still unknown whether he could block his attack. All right, if you can defeat or injure me with a swing of your sword without using any external forces, I'll go east, but I won't go west, Yi Ming shouted angrily. There was a raging fire burning within him. One sword? How could he be so delusional? It was simply a fantasy. He was simply arrogant and self-righteous. If he couldn't even block one sword, he could forget about being the Guardian Chief and just obediently cooperate with Zong. This was also considered a bet. If Zong couldn't force Yi Ming back with one sword, he would let Yi Ming be the Guardian Chief. On the other hand, if Yi Ming was forced back by Zong with one sword, he would have to completely obey Zong's orders. Regarding this, the other three people were the witnesses. The three of them could not help but feel somewhat excited. They felt that it was very exciting. Guardian Chief, we can't fight here. Let's go outside. Yi Ming sneered at Zong. This time, he would definitely win. The position of Guardian Chief would be his. Although there would be some twists and turns in the process, it would still fall into his hands in the end. He didn't know that Zong had already understood his combat strength. 4-star. That's right. Yi Ming's combat strength was the strongest among the four of them. He was at the 4-star level. As for the other three, they were all at the 3-star level. Even Luo Hao wouldn't dare say that he could force me back with one strike, Yi Ming thought in his heart. This was because Luo Hao's combat strength was at the peak of the 4-star level. He could defeat Yi Ming, but it wouldn't be easy to force him back or injure him with just one strike. As long as Yi Ming unleashed his full strength to resist, he could even counterattack and defeat Luo Hao. Chapter 22-29. On every level of the inner demon cave, there was a room for the Guardian. Outside the room was an empty space. The ground was dark black and incomparably hard. It was countless times harder than steel. The surrounding cave walls were very rough and bumpy. Countless stones crisscrossed under the cave walls. From afar, it looked like a ferocious demon, frightening to the soul. Such an environment was not good. It would make people feel oppressed after a long time. Looking ahead, even with Zong's amazing eyesight, he could only see darkness. It was like an endless abyss that stretched to an unknown place. It seemed like something extremely dangerous was lurking there. It contained great terror. That was also the direction where the inner demon would appear. However, the inner demon had not appeared yet. Chief Guardian, this place is very spacious. It should be enough for you to go all out, Yi Ming said with a smile. I'll give you 3 breaths to let you go all out. Zong smiled. This is also my advice to you. Zong's words puzzled everyone. Where did he get his confidence from? He had just broken through to the origin underworld stage not long ago. It was estimated that he had only broken through to the origin underworld stage in the past 10 to 20 years. It was very difficult for an origin underworld stage cultivator to improve. 10 to 20 years was nothing. Even the top geniuses had limited improvement. This period of time was at most to convert the active potential after the breakthrough into strength. That was all. Therefore, Chunzong's combat strength was estimated to be at the 2-star level, which was very shocking. It was even more shocking that he was only at the 3-star level, which was almost impossible. It was also because of this that Yi Tianming said that he would not use other external forces. He wanted to prevent Chunzong from using some trump cards that did not belong to him. Of course, this condition was mutual. Although he did not believe that Chunzong could threaten him, Yiming did not underestimate him at all. At the very least, he did not underestimate him in his actions. This was something that he had learned over the years. No matter what kind of opponent he faced, he could not underestimate them. Even if the other party was not strong enough, he could not let his guard down. After all, he had already formed a habit. If he underestimated the other party because he felt that the other party was not strong enough, it might lead to the same thing the next time. In an instant, he activated his cultivation technique and mobilized all the power of his mid-level origin underworld stage cultivation base. A tyrannical aura also spread out, forming an extremely terrifying pressure that suppressed the surroundings. It caused all the aura around him to stop flowing as if it had been solidified. The oppressive aura also spread out. Vaguely, there were electric arcs flashing around Yiming. They unleashed terrifying power, as if they were going to destroy everything. The other 3 people, except for Chunzong's expression. In the next breath, Yiming's aura grew again. Layers of flames burned and surrounded him. There were a total of 8 layers of illusory flames surrounding Yiming's body, burning continuously. He had cultivated the 33 layered heavens of heart technique to the 8th layer. However, being able to cultivate to the 8th level of the 33 layered heavens of intent at the mid-level of the Yuanming realm was already considered pretty good. Come on. After unleashing all of his power, Yiming's long hair danced in the wind while lightning raged in his eyes. He was extremely violent as he stared at the ground and shouted. The extremely hard ground beneath his feet sank at that moment. Layers of cracks appeared and spread rapidly within a 10-meter radius. After Yiming was ready, Chunzong's right hand landed lightly on the sword hilt. A brilliant glow that was hundreds of meters long shot out of his eyes, as if it was tearing the darkness here apart. He drew his sword. There seemed to be a faint sword hum. At the same time, a ray of light suddenly bloomed from the scabbard. The 13th level of the primordial sword origin technique was activated. The aura of a low-level origin underworld stage also spread out. The 3 people and Yiming felt relieved when they sensed Chunzong's cultivation base aura. It was as if they were relieved. Sure enough, his cultivation base was at the low-level origin underworld stage. Furthermore, he should have just entered the low-level origin underworld stage and had just consolidated his cultivation base. With such a cultivation base, no matter how strong his combat strength was, it would be at most a 3-star level. That was extremely shocking. The sword was pulled out inch by inch. The aura condensed on Chunzong's body also continued to rise, becoming increasingly tyrannical. A formless storm swept up in the surroundings, wreaking havoc. The extreme sharpness seemed to be able to cut everything into pieces. Even the extremely hard ground was torn apart by cracks. When the sword was half out of the scabbard, the sword light was so powerful that it was difficult to look directly at it. Chunzong's aura also became more tyrannical and condensed. The power of his cultivation base was pushed to the extreme. Then, a layer of illusory flames burned on Chunzong's body. The 4 people knew at a glance that Chunzong had also used the Heart Flame divine ability. In that case, what level has this kid cultivated the 33 heavens of will to now? The level of Heart Flame was closely related to the strength of the mind power of the people in the Will Heavenly Palace. It was also a kind of talent. The 8th level. When the 8th level of illusory flames burned, the 4 people looked solemn. He had the 8th level of Heart Flame at the low-level origin underworld stage. This talent was much better than Yiming's. However, the ninth level of illusory flames burned as well. Yiming and the others looked even more solemn. When they saw the 10th level of illusory flames burn, the four of them were not solemn but shocked. The 10th level of heart flame. It meant that the 10th level of the heart flame divine ability had been completely cultivated and 10 heart palaces had been forged. Horrifying. Extremely horrifying. It was simply unheard of. Staring at Yiming, who was 100 meters away, Chunzong had the confidence to win. The divine feeling in the unseen world gave him the confidence to win. One sword move was enough to defeat Yiming. Therefore, Chunzong did not intend to use the power of the Taichu sword origin form. When the 10th level of heart flame burned, the sword happened to be drawn from the scabbard. The moment the tip of the sword left the scabbard, Chunzong waved his right hand. The speed of drawing the sword, which was originally slow, suddenly increased by countless times like lightning. The three of them realized that their eyes seemed to have lost their function. They could not catch Chunzong's sword move at all. Even Yiming, who had stronger combat strength, could not catch it. His eyelids twitched. Lightning wall. In the face of danger, Yiming's reaction was extremely fast. He immediately exploded. Countless lightning flashed and condensed in front of him, forming a wall-like defense. His goal was to block Chunzong's sword move. However, in the next breath, Yiming realized that he seemed to be naive. An extremely powerful sword gleam arrived. The lightning wall only blocked it for a moment before it was pierced and penetrated. The sharpness of the sword made Yiming feel that he could not resist at all. In front of this sword gleam, it was as if all defenses were useless. Sword technique of heart refinement. Sword 4. The power of Sword 4 with the Sword Dao territory of 4,000 meters was extremely terrifying. It caused the sword's power to reach or even surpass the level of a top 4-star combat strength. It was infinitely close to a 5-star combat strength. If Chunzong unleashed the power of the Taichu sword origin form, the sword's power would truly reach a 5-star combat strength. However, a sword with a top 4-star combat strength was enough to deal with Yiming. Due to the characteristics of the Taichu sword origin, it was difficult to resist. The moment the lightning wall was penetrated, Yiming seemed to have turned into a bolt of lightning. He was surrounded by countless lightning bolts and retreated quickly. However, he was still a little too slow. Although he was fast, Chunzong's sword was even faster. At the critical moment, Chunzong stopped. Otherwise, this sword might not be able to kill Yiming, but it would be enough to penetrate him. As the sword returned to its scabbard, the extremely terrifying sharpness that seemed to be able to tear through space disappeared as well. It seemed to have been put back into the scabbard. The three people who were watching the battle could not help but breathe quickly. Their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. "I've lost." When Yiming uttered those 3 words, his voice was extremely dry and shrill. It was as if the words were squeezed out from his throat. He was extremely shocked. He had been defeated. Furthermore, he had used a secret technique to unleash all of his power. The sword penetrated the lightning wall. If he had not retreated in time, that sword would have penetrated his body as well. Yiming did not sense that Chunzong had held back a little at the critical moment. Otherwise, he would not have been able to dodge. According to the bet, if Yiming was forced to retreat or be injured, he would be considered to have lost. However, his current position was a few dozen meters away from his previous position. This meant that he had been forced to retreat. Since he could not block that sword and retreated, he was considered to have been forced to retreat. Tenfold heart fire. Absolute combat strength. That sword was definitely at the peak of 4-star combat strength. Yiming could only give up on the idea of becoming the town chief completely. What a pity. He had only been here for a few decades. If he were to become the town chief, he would be able to serve for a few more decades. It would be enough for him to earn more merits. Now, he dared not have any extravagant hopes. They were sincerely convinced. Now, that was the only way to describe the 4 people's mentality. They were sincerely convinced by Chunzong. The law of the strong being respected was applicable no matter where one was. With just one sword, Chunzong had subdued the 4 of them. Of course, it would be beneficial for the next 10 years. At the very least, there would not be any problems for him to worry about. Naturally, he would have to do his best to guard the 8th level for 10 years. He had to ensure that no inner demons would rush out. Chunzong glanced at them. His tone was like a breeze as he asked unhurriedly, "I've just arrived, so I don't know much about this. Who can tell me in detail?" He walked toward the living room as he spoke. "Yes, town chief." Yiming snapped back to his senses. He pulled himself together instinctively and responded quickly. Next, Yiming was the main speaker while the other 3 supplemented. They told Chunzong about the situation on the 8th level of the Inner Demon Cave so that he could have a more direct and deeper understanding of this place. Currently, everything was peaceful. The inner demons would not appear all the time. They would only appear once in a while. However, there was actually no pattern to the exact interval. Therefore, everyone was usually cultivating while observing to see if the inner demons would appear. If there were, the early warning formation would send out a warning. By then, everyone would just have to make a move. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.